What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. After that fatidic night, Sasuke was no longer the same. He became cold and distant with the others people of our class, and did not bother to talk to anyone. Well, it was not like he had acted very friendly with our classmates before the murder anyway, but at least, he cared about them a little, at the time, even if he never showed it. And he really paid attention in class so that he could surpass our brother one day. But now, he hardly left the compound, except to go to the academy, to train with me, or go for a walk in the village once in a while. He did not really pay attention in class, he did not care about his classmates anymore, and each time I glanced at him, he was looking by the window. He was still the best student of our class, and so was I, but did it matter, now that our family was dead, that Itachi had left and that we had nobody to congratulate us? As for Naruto, he would continue to show our class he was better than Sasuke. More than that, I had an idea that those challenges between the two boys were a way for Naruto to somehow take my brother's mind off things. Unfortunately, it did not seem to work, as Sasuke was now only seeing the blonde as an eternal loser. I had already asked my twin several times to be friendlier with the blonde, but it was a wasted effort. Worse than that, Sasuke was more and more obsessed with revenge, and, even as his twin sister, I could not find the words to calm him down, no matter how hard I had tried to tell him to change his mind. When our period of study at the academy came to an end, I had learned to read, to write, to count, and all I needed to know as a future kunoichi of Konoha, whether it was about chakra or ninja techniques. I had good relationships with my classmates too, even though you could not say we were besties, for now. We were just getting along, and it was fine by me. I mainly spent my time playing with my comrades or studying for school. And here already came the final exams. The test was tomorrow, but all the students of the class had been starting to prepare themselves months ago. Many of us were excited to finally leave school and go on missions with a team of their own. I was really happy about the idea too, as being part of a team would mean new friendships, and I could not wait for that. Of course, I was still a little afraid, but I would become more confident after having done some missions. But before that, there's still the test to take and pass, so I should not get on my high horses. I'll do my best. In any case, all my classmates had become more serious than ever, because of this test, and had been training relentlessly for the D-Day. Well, except for one of them. But I was not very surprised. I'm at the end of my rope, Naruto. You failed the graduation test last time and the time before that. Tomorrow, you've got another chance, and you're messing up again," said Naruto, tied up with ropes and sitting on the floor in front of the class, humped and turned his head in contempt, as if he did not care at all, and I could not help smiling. This is just like you, Naruto. However, when I looked at the other students around me, all I saw in their eyes were annoyance, anger and contempt. Except maybe for Hinata, who had love shining in her eyes, and Sasuke, who did not actually care at all about the blonde knucklehead ninja. In any way, Naruto being so disobedient and disdainful made our sensei, Iruka Amino, get really mad. He gritted his teeth, and his whole face reddened. Well, it always came like this when the blonde was messing around. And this time was no exception. Sooner this afternoon, he had disfigured every face of the Hokage rock with paint. "Oh, Naruto, I already told you not to get on our teacher's nerves." I knew he wanted to be accepted by his comrades, but it was not like that he was going to make new friends. Well, he already had me, but I would have felt better knowing that he had other persons he could rely on. All the adults in Konoha were constantly looking down on him, even if they did not dare to tell him something when I was with him, and since the massacre, I was regaled with whispers and sidelong glances too. I understood better why Sasuke did not particularly want to go for a walk in the city when I would ask him. I looked at Ino, who was sitting next to me, on my left. We were on the front row. She had a blonde ponytail and light blue eyes. Her clothes were violet most of the time. Behind us were Kiba and Sakura, and behind them, at the back of the classroom, were Shikamaru and Sasuke. On my right were Choji and Hinata. Shino and his insects were sitting not far behind them. But, coming back to Ino, she was quite sympathetic, even though she mainly talked with me to have news of my brother. Just like Sakura, actually, and there was no wonder why the two girls looked so close. It seemed however that they had argued about Sasuke's love when they were younger, and now they barely speak to each other. Except when it was about my brother, and it would always end by the two girls yelling insults at each other. But for now, Ino seemed annoyed by Naruto's childish behavior. She realized I was looking at her, so I smiled at her. She seemed surprised but smiled back, before looking down on Naruto. Fine. Because you missed it, Naruto, everyone will review the transformation jutsu. The whole class let out a groan. I sighed. Poor Naruto. He still had a long way to go. We all came in front of the teacher's desk. No need to say everyone was glaring at Naruto. Because of him, everybody had to do the exercise again. As for me, I felt bad for him, because I knew he had not wanted his comrades to be punished for what he had done. But it was too late now to apologize. The boy really had a pure heart, though, but he was still growing up. In fact, we all were. His teammates had to support him, not let him down or ignore him as they did most of the time. And the same thing applied for our sensei too. Iruka, with his brown spiky hair and his olive skin, should treat him better and try to understand him. So why is he so harsh with him? Nobody had really tried to understand the blonde. I really hoped there would be a chance to change that, especially when we would be promoted. For the moment, it was time to perform the technique. One next to the other, the students were all lined up and waiting to be called by our teacher. Iruka-sensei looked at the list he was holding, and began to call the pupils one after the other. Not in an alphabetic order, though, which surprised me. I was between Naruto and my brother, so the atmosphere was heavy. Sasuke, his hands in the pockets of his white shorts, was not giving a care at all to the other students, while Naruto on the other hand was looking at them anxiously. I wonder if he's stressed because he doesn't know how to master the technique. So, I did the only thing I could do to cheer him up. I put my hand on his shoulder. He jumped. Don't worry, I reassured him. I'm sure you're going to nail it all. I believe in you. His eyes twinkled as they had never done before. The smile he gave me was brighter than the sun itself. Thank you, Asuka. You don't know how much it means to me to hear you say that. Don't forget this is all your fault if we have to review the transformation jutsu. No matter what my little sister can say, you'll just fail. Sasuke. I frowned at him. You don't need to be so unkind. I hope you'll act friendlier if you pass the test or assigned to a team. Where had the kind brother I had known gone? I knew very well that, for now, Naruto and Sasuke were far from being the best of friends. But I had hoped Sasuke would put his pride aside just for one day and would be a little nicer with the others, especially with Naruto, my closest friend for years. Say that again. I'm going to. Both of you, stop please. I cut off in a whisper, trying to keep them apart. Easier said than done. Fortunately, I was between them. Everyone is looking at us. Indeed, all our class, including Iruka, had now their attention drawn on us. I smiled politely, embarrassed, trying to act as if nothing had happened. Our sensei sighed, and then looked at his list, calling another name. This time, it was Sakura's turn. She stepped forward to perform the transformation jutsu. I did not worry for her. She had always had a good chakra control and great grades, so she would succeed without a doubt. She could be hot-tempered, sometimes, but maybe this was because she used to be bullied when she was younger, because of her large forehead. It was always easier to attack children who did not have a lot of confidence. Fortunately, Ino had really helped her to change. Alright, Sakura here, let's do it. Transform. A cloud of smoke came up around her. When it disappeared, there were two Iruka in the classroom. Well, there was no need to be impressed, since it was a technique we had to master as future genin, but it was a good thing she had did the transformation right. Transformed into me. Good. Yes. I did it. Yes. She turned around, looking at my dear twin brother. Sasuke, did you see that? She asked joyfully. The latest did not bother to answer to her and did not even look at her. I chuckled. You'll always have only eyes for Sasuke, won't you, Sakura? It was like there was only Sasuke in the classroom. I was sure they would make a great couple, if my brother took his chance on her, but he did not seem interested for now. I can't really say I'm surprised. It's just like Sasuke to have no interest in girls. On the other hand, I had noticed Hinata was always glancing at Naruto, but she was so shy that I had never dared to speak to her, because it would have probably made her feel uneasy. And I do not think a lot of people had spoken to her either. Maybe she would find the courage to assert herself when she would graduate. Sakura walked down the line, and then Iruka called my name. Next, Asuka Uchiha. I nodded and stepped forwards. When I glanced at Naruto, he had his thumb up and winked. I smiled at him, then took a deep breath and joined my fingers together. I could feel my chakra burning bright inside of me. It's so warm. The chakra is flowing throughout every part and every member of my body. This was of course not the first time it happened, but it felt like no matter what happened, I was ready to face whatever difficulty I would encounter. I was glad to have this power inside of me. I felt protected. Like, really protected. One said that if you were strong enough, you could know what feeling someone's chakra was conveying. I mean, depending on the person, your chakra could be for instance bright and warm, or dark and cold. Chakra was linked to people's actions and emotions, there was no doubt about it. Iruka had even explained that to us during one of our classes. On top of that, there are different variations of chakra: wind, lightning, earth, fire, and water. As an Uchiha, I sure have affinities with fire. It was very useful to know which element your chakra had affinities with. You knew which techniques you could perform and which ones you could not. Right, I shook my head and concentrate. Transformation Jutsu. What are the hand seals already? Oh yes, this is it. Dog, boar, and ram. Here we go. Poof, smoke appeared all around me, and I felt my whole body changing. When the smoke disappeared, Iruka-sensei smiled at me and wrote something down on his list. I did not know if he was testing us and so giving us a mark, but anyway, I knew I had done the exercise right. Our teacher congratulated me and I transformed back. Here I was again, with my untied black hair, and 2 locks which were each one around my face, my blue t-shirt with short sleeves and the Uchiwa crest on the back. I was also wearing a skirt over a pair of white shorts, usual ninja sandals with small gaiters, which allowed my toes to be seen, and a pair of silver mitts. Finally, a fabric belt decorated with a ribbon circled my hips. My main colors were blue, black and white, like my brother, but a brighter and lighter shade of blue. I looked like him for sure, but I looked like my mother more when she was my age. Yeah, you did it, Asuka. You're the best. My cheeks dangerously reddened. I waved at Naruto to thank him and walked down the line. After me, it was now Sasuke's turn to perform the jutsu. No need to say he transformed successfully, and came next to me after he finished. We smiled at each other but did not talk, since Iruka-sensei had forbidden us to chat not to disturb the person who was trying to transform. No time to wonder who it was. Our teacher was already calling his name. Next, Naruto Uzumaki. I grinned and used my hands as a megaphone. I could hear Ino and Shikamaru saying something to him, but it did not matter. I wanted to cheer him up because he needed it. Come on Naruto, you can do it. Impress them all, you bet. Sasuke rolled his eyes, but I was too focused on Naruto to see it. Something was strange. I could feel in his voice that he was up to something. I knew him well, after all. The sparkle in his eyes, this smile of his. Something was on his mind, but I did not know what he had planned to do. I stroked my chin nervously. If I had followed my intuition, I would have said he was going to. He put his hands together, transform. I gasped, having all of a sudden a premonition. Please don't tell me that he's about to. There was smoke. When it went down a little, Naruto had disappeared. Instead was an 18-year-old blonde girl with blue eyes, but the worst thing was she was entirely naked. Fortunately, smoke still covered some intimate parts of her anatomy. It was Naruto, in a feminine version. That's right, he had already showed this technique to me. And as if this was not enough, the girl blew a kiss and winked at the same time. I was not quite sure if I felt like bursting into laughter or praying Iruka not to kill Naruto on the spot. You really can't help kidding, can you? And he was the boy who was supposed to be my best friend. At least, he did not take himself seriously. It was not bad to have a little fun to decompress before the test, tomorrow. I had always been amazed by the results this technique had on men. Well, apart from Sasuke, and how they reacted. Iruka became livid, his eyes looked as if they were going to pop out and he was totally dumbstruck. Blood sprang from his nose and he was knocked back after that. Wow, Naruto really blew him away, this time. This was the only way he had found to draw attention on him. He had not really friends at that moment, but I was sure it was only a matter of time before the entire village came to appreciate him. They just needed some time to see who Naruto really was. I really liked him. He was funny, honest, loyal, and I did not understand why everyone still despised him so much. Iruka needed a few seconds to pull himself together after Naruto's bad joke. The latest transformed back and burst into laughter, pointing at Iruka. Everybody was glaring at the blonde. Sasuke, who usually did not care about Naruto's childish behavior, seemed disillusioned. I resisted the urge to laugh and giggled instead. What I found sad, though, was that Naruto's smile did not seem to be real, like he had faked it. Could it be possible? Maybe he himself did not find this joke that amusing. He had been doing tricks like that with his teacher for years. Maybe the game did not sound funny anymore. He and I really need to discuss seriously on how to make friends in another way than being the class fool. Wait a little more, Naruto. One day you'll shine and they'll see you for who you are. Gotcha. That's my jutsu. Cut the stupid tricks. This is your last warning, he shouted. Naruto stayed speechless after this outburst. Class was dismissed soon after. Everybody was now talking about tomorrow's exam to finally graduate, and I could not help but feel a little anxious. Iruka had taken Naruto to the Hokage Rock in order to make him clean up the paint he had used to disfigure the different faces sooner this day, so I could not talk and play with him. Shikamaru was with Choji, Sakura and Ino were probably together too. Shino had gone to the forest nearby to collect new insects with Kiba and Akamaru. Hinata had probably gone home to train for the test. In short, everybody was busy, so I decided to go back home with my brother. He wanted to revise one last time, and I agreed on the fact that it could not hurt. In fact, we did not know much about what was waiting for us. Normally, the test would take place in the morning, and the results would be indicated by the middle of the afternoon, at least it was what I had understood. I don't think it'll be something very complicated. I'll just have to relax and take it easy. If I remembered the hand seals correctly and used my chakra in a proper way, that would be a piece of cake. We both went back to the compound together and revised for tomorrow's exam until it was time to have dinner. Not so long after that, we went to bed. The last thing I thought of before falling asleep was Naruto. He probably had gone to Ichiraku tonight with our teacher, and I was happy for him that he was not alone. But for some reason, I was concerned about him. I hoped everything would go well tomorrow. The morning after, I was the first to wake up. I had not slept very well, because I was nervous about my graduation. What if, for a reason or another, I did not pass? I must stop worrying about that stupid test. I'm not at the top of our class, for nothing, neither is Sasuke. So come on, pull yourself together, Asuka. You still have a lot on your plate. I had no right to disappoint the persons who relied on me. Sasuke got up a few moments after me. He was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and even smiled at me. We took our breakfast quite quickly. In no time, we were prepared for going to the academy, and that terrible exam. On our way to school, Sasuke seemed to notice something was wrong with me. I did my best to reassure him, but he insisted, and I told him the truth. This was right after that he started laughing. I don't see what's so funny. It's just, I'm happy. I stared at him in shock and his peals of laughter died away in his throat. I was feeling like I was the only one of us who was stressed, you see. Knowing that you're as afraid as I am for this test is kind of a relief. Wow, do I look that much self-confident? I know Uchihas are not good at showing their emotions, but I didn't know it could go that far. Yet, I was happy to know Sasuke worried about that exam. This is what normal people experience in this type of situation. I had always found my brother overconfident and full of assurance. But he was not really like that at all, actually. This was what he wanted to show to people around him. So, I decided to take it all easy, and we talked together until we finally arrived to the academy. Everybody in the school was already speaking about the graduation exam and Sasuke's fangirls club got excited as usual when he and I stepped into the classroom. Fortunately, Iruka-sensei entered right after us and when he clapped his hands, everybody stopped chatting and went to sit down. My seat was just between the one of my brother and the one of Shikamaru. The first looked so serious and the second so bored that I soon felt uneasy being stuck in the middle of them. We will now start the final exam, Iruka informed us. When your name is called, proceed to the testing room. The final test will be on the clone jutsu. I bit nervously my lips when he said that. I only hoped I would be able to perform the technique correctly, otherwise this was the end. But it could not be that difficult, I had studied hard. Naruto must seriously be freaking out right now, though. He never really liked exams, and he had always had a hard time performing this technique. I glanced at him. Indeed, he was going pale and all his colors had run dry. I wish I could have said a few words to him to cheer him up, but I could not talk to him right now. I had to wait until the results were displayed. Iruka-sensei began to call a name on the list, in alphabetic order, and a student stood up and left the class. I closed my eyes, my hands resting on my desk, while I tried to remember the hand seals needed to the jutsu. Shikamaru heavily sighed and Sasuke was staring into space, his chin lying on the back of his hands. None of them talked to me. Iruka had forbidden the candidates to do so. The class was composed of 37 students. With a name beginning by AU, I was near the bottom of the list, with my brother. A lot of students had already taken the test. I had no choice but grin and bear it. After what seemed an eternity to me, my name was finally called by Iruka. I immediately stood up and headed to the door. "Good luck, but you don't need it," Sasuke whispered when I passed next to him. "Thanks, big brother," I replied in a smile. "Good luck to you too." But I knew he did not need it either. Iruka-sensei led me to the room where the test was going to happen. He being one of the examiners did not make me relax, and I gulped when he opened what was actually a classroom like any other, apart from the fact that Mizuki-sensei, I think it was his name, with his pale blue hair and his green jacket, was sitting behind a large desk. On that very same desk were about 15 headbands. I gulped as Iruka walked towards the other chair that was on Mizuki's left, and sat down. The brown-haired man asked me some personal information to check I was Asuka Uchiha and not another person, and then, things got serious. "Alright, Asuka. As you were told earlier, we would like you to perform a clone jutsu. We're ready when you are," Mizuki politely said. I nodded and took a deep breath. I emptied my mind and focused on myself and the energy in my body. I could feel my chakra bubbling inside of me and it was as sweet as a cup of hot chocolate. It was flooding every muscle, every organ and every cell that I owned. It looks like it's a good start, I thought, noticing the blue energy that surrounded me. I had just to control this power and turn it into what I wanted it to be. First is ram, second is snake and third is tiger. My fingers made hand seals without me completely realizing it, as if it was an automatism. That being done, smoke appeared around me and I found 3 replicas of myself standing by my side. A glimpse of surprise flashed into my eyes, straight away replaced by pride like I had never felt before. Sure, it was only basics, and I had studied for years at the academy, but still, it could have been all wrong for a reason or another, who knows. Done, I was finally done with this test. This was perfect, Asuka. I wasn't expecting less from one of my best students, and I'm sure your brother will perfectly succeed too. Iruka-sensei congratulated me, as my 3 clones were disappearing. I thanked him with a genuine smile, and left the academy while my teacher was going back to the classroom. It was probably my big brother's turn to take the exam, now. I was free for the morning. The results would be displayed later on the afternoon. All the grades we had had this year would count, and of course, the one we were given for this clone jutsu we had to perform. I was not worried anymore, now. I knew I would graduate and become a genin. I had worked so much to reach this level. I felt very satisfied with myself. After lunch, Sasuke had prepared bentos for the both of us. A ceremony was held in honor to the students who were promoted as genin. Children had come with their parents and their family, and they were all gathered in front of the academy entrance. I was waiting excitedly, and I was sure Sasuke, next to me, could not wait either to receive his forehead protector. Everyone around us was chatting, but it all stopped when the 3rd Hokage appeared. He made a brief speech to congratulate everybody who had succeeded, and to talk about how he was proud of us all and how each of us incarnated the will of fire. My eyes twinkled at his words. I had always dreamed of having this determination to protect my village, and to feel it burning in my heart. After that, he began to call names in alphabetical order, for the genin to receive their gift. When it was my turn, I heard some people whisper about the Uchiha clan and its downfall, but I ignored it and came towards Iruka. He handed me a navy blue headband with a grin, and congratulated me. I grinned back at him before returning into the crowd. I met Sasuke who was coming from the opposite direction to receive his headband too, and we smiled at each other. I soon really felt oppressed by all those people, so I get away from the crowd. I tied my headband in the same way as Sakura did. Not on my forehead, but directly on my hair, on the top of my head, mainly because I found it was more practical and nicer that way. Speaking of that, Sakura and the others had graduated too, and I felt happy for them. I think all our school year graduated, actually, right? For now, the young students were happily talking with their families and friends about their recent graduation. But I did not care about that at all, because there was somebody I needed to see. Right now, I need to talk to Naruto. I knew people were rumoring and gossiping about him, so he really needed support, and I wanted to see if he had passed, like the rest of our year group. So I tried to find where he could be. He was not fond of crowds either, maybe he was in a quieter place. I finally saw him sitting on a swing, with Mizuki-sensei standing next to him, but before I could join the two of them, somebody bumped into me. He apologized and went away. I looked at the swing but Naruto and Mizuki were not here anymore. Where did they go? I jumped when someone's hand lightly touched my shoulder and turned around to face my brother. He put his hands in his pockets and sighed. There you are. I wondered where you had gone. I was just looking for Naruto, but he left before I could talk to him. Your headband really suits you, by the way, I stated, pointing at his forehead protector with a smile. He smiled back with pride. Thanks, so does yours. But you should know, Naruto didn't graduate. I stared at him in shock. What? He did not make it? But I thought, I had gotten away from the crowd before I could hear Naruto's name be called. And I knew Sasuke was not the type to make jokes and tease people. He had not lied. So, it did mean that Naruto had failed? I looked around me, trying to see if I could spot him, but he was nowhere to be found. What was I thinking? He must be in low spirits. I need to find him and see if he's okay. Knots formed into my belly, and I bit my lips. I had really hoped he would pass. I knew he was not the best student at school, but I had always believed in him, no matter what. I had really thought he would succeed. Could not something be done about that? Was he really going to be the only one to fail? I could not accept that. If that's so, I prefer to give my headband up and repeat the year. There's no way I am a genin without Naruto. We're a big family, and family means that nobody must be left behind. I had made up my mind. I was going to intercede with the third Hokage on behalf of Naruto. He needed another chance. Maybe I would be told no, and that Naruto would not be promoted, but I had at least to try. I made a few steps toward the academy entrance, where Iruka-sensei and the Hokage had been standing a few moments earlier, when they had given us our forehead protectors. However, my eyes widened when I realized they were not here anymore. They seemed to have disappeared too, just like the blonde. Maybe there was a link? I really felt like I was cursed. Now. Come on. Sasuke took my hand. There's nothing you can do for now. I looked at Sasuke sadly. I knew he was right, but knowing that Naruto had not passed and that he was alone, without anybody to support him or cheer him up, made me feel sad and powerless. Maybe Naruto needs some time alone. If I could not see the Hokage today, I will try tomorrow, then. If he had a meeting with someone, trying to talk to him would not serve my cause at all. I guess all I can do for the moment is wait. I sighed and turned towards my brother. Fine, I whispered. Only the moonlight was lightening up the road tonight, as I was walking in the forest. I had decided to go out after dinner. Well, you could not really call it that way. I had not eaten anything, because I worried too much about Naruto to swallow anything. Is he alright? How could I be hungry when one of my classmates had failed his exam? Sasuke might thought it served him right, but I thought differently. I could not get what had happened sooner that day off my mind, and I needed to do something about it. So I told Sasuke I was going to do the washing up. He agreed, and once I was sure he was in our bedroom, I left our house and the compound as silently as possible, with the full moon as the only witness. I can't act as if nothing had happened. I just wanted to see if I could see Naruto somewhere. I would not be outside for long, and I hoped Sasuke would not notice I had gone out. Fingers crossed. I do not know really why, but my footsteps had led me to the forest, as I was still looking for the blonde. Where are you, Naruto? It was not impossible for him to be somewhere in here, as the forest was a quiet place and a perfect hideout when you needed some time alone. It reminds me the time when we used to watch Itachi throw the kunai at the targets. I wonder where he is now, and if he missed us just a little. How I wish none of this happened. Yeah, the forest was clearly a unique place. I had to be careful, or I could very well lose my way. I was thinking I had maybe already gotten lost, when I heard someone breathe. A few moments later, I discovered a clearing, with Naruto in the middle of it, who was sitting. He looked like he had made an effort and was trying to catch his breath. My eyes twinkled at this sight. Naruto, you're here. I finally found you. You don't know how much I was worried about you." I made a step towards him, but before I could call his name, I saw another person coming too. The figure was all too familiar for me not to recognize it, especially as I saw the person it belonged to every day at school. It was Iruka-sensei's. I wonder why he's here. The best for now was to stay hidden behind the three next to me. Nobody would see me, and I would probably learn what was the meaning of all this. "It's all over." Naruto watched at him with a smile and ruffled his hair before he started laughing nervously. Iruka silently stared at him, puzzled. That was at that moment I noticed the big green scroll Naruto was carrying on his back. What was he going to do with it? Got me already? Not bad. You're quick, sensei. I only had time to learn one technique. So, he was training? All this time? Wow, if that was the case, his determination was far beyond any other. I was really impressed, to say the least. "Listen, Iruka-sensei." He extended his arms. "I'm going to show you this amazing jutsu and you're going to let me graduate and everything will be okay." That's the way it works, right? Anyone who learns jutsu from this scroll passes. Things were slowly adding up. Naruto had trained and learned one jutsu from the scroll, so he was hoping to become a genin. I've a bad feeling, though. Do things really work that way? And why was Iruka-sensei looked so taken aback, then? "Huh? Where'd you get that idea?" he exclaimed. "Mizuki-sensei told me about it, believe it." The blonde proudly replied. "He told me where to find the scroll. And this place, Mizuki-sensei?" Then, it probably meant everything was fine. He had probably just wanted to help Naruto pass the test. I had known him since I had enrolled the academy, and I trusted him. I was sure there was no need to worry. Well, that was until said Mizuki suddenly threw a shuriken out of nowhere. Iruka-sensei immediately pushed Naruto aside, before being pinned with kunai against the wall of a shack that was just behind them. My obsidian eyes widened. "Sensei." "Naruto." I stepped out from my hideout and caught Naruto from behind. We both found ourselves lying on the ground, but it seemed I had somehow broken our fall. It still hurt in the end, but at least we were safe and sound for now. My whole body was shaking though, but it did not really matter. I was just trying to find my friend and here I am, caught in the middle of a fight. Because it was a fight. Mizuki-sensei had clearly intended to kill Naruto. I did not know why he had done that, but the memory of my parents lying dead on the floor had flashed in my mind. I was not going to let anything close to me die before my eyes. Not when I was still alive. I won't let that happen again, I could not bear it. "Asuka?" Naruto looked at me with wide eyes, and so were Mizuki and Iruka. "What? How? When? I mean, are you fine?" he asked in deep concern. "It's okay, Naruto," I gently smiled. "I was worried so I decided to look for you, but I didn't think." I did not finish my sentence, and looked up at Mizuki, who was standing on the branch of a tree. "I must say, I'm impressed you and Iruka found the place," he smirked. "So, that's the way it is, huh? I should have known." Iruka groaned in pain. Blood was staining his clothes here and there, at the places where the kunai had sunk into his skin. "Iruka-sensei." Naruto and I stood up straight away, in order to help our teacher, but with a single look, he made us understand we had to stay where we were. This was the better thing to do if we did not want Mizuki to kill us. "What are we going to do, now?" Naruto looked at me, and he was as lost as I was. How had we gotten to this point? It could not be true. What did all that mean? "Naruto, give me that scroll, now." Mizuki brutally ordered, always on the branch. "Wait a minute," the blonde said, looking at Iruka then at Mizuki again. "What's going on here?" I shivered. "I don't know, but I'm quite sure Mizuki is the bad person here. He was obsessed with that scroll to the point that he had nearly killed Naruto and attacked our sensei. That could only mean he was not on our side. Naruto, don't let Mizuki get the scroll." Iruka shouted, taking a kunai off his skin, while a trickle of blood was coming out of his mouth. "It contains forbidden jutsu that could put this village in grave danger. Mizuki used you to get the scroll for himself. For his own power. What?" we both exclaimed at the same time. "Naruto, Iruka is just trying to scare you cause he doesn't want you to have the scroll," Mizuki stated in response. We looked at Iruka again. "Stop lying, Mizuki. Don't let him trick you, Naruto, Asuka." Iruka-sensei, he was right. My heart was saying to me that our teacher was telling us the truth. Everything becomes clear. So Mizuki had lied to Naruto, had probably turned the whole village against him if it was not already the case, and likely intended to kill the three of us when he would get the scroll. I gulped. We can't let him have this dangerous scroll. There must be something we can do. Naruto and I looked at each other, wondering what we were going to do to get out of this mess, when Mizuki-sensei suddenly sniggered and said to us, "Oh, I'll tell you who's really lying." I frowned. Who's really lying? What could he possibly mean by that? And why should he be trusted after what they've just done? No, Mizuki, Iruka yelled. It seemed those two were aware of something we weren't. They've been lying to you your whole life, Naruto. Since the decree 12 years ago. What decree? Naruto and I asked at the same time. Everyone knows except you. Iruka's trying to hide it from you now. He'd do anything to shut me up. I gasped, and Naruto's eyes went wide. What is this decree? Why does everyone else know about it? Don't tell them. It's forbidden. But it was already too late, unfortunately. Iruka-sensei was not in a position to stop Mizuki from talking, and the whole thing was way too serious to just let things go. Naruto did want to know that secret that had been kept from him, and, whether I wanted to know it or not, I could not escape, and if I put my hands on my ears, I would hear anyway. I only could watch in horror at Mizuki-sensei and what he was going to tell us. The decree is, no one can tell you the nine-tailed fox is inside you. Naruto's sweat dropped. Huh? I myself believed I had misunderstood, until Mizuki added, the fox spirit that killed Iruka's parents and destroyed our village has taken over your body. You are the nine-tailed fox. Despite Iruka-sensei's yells, Mizuki did not stop talking, but I had to say I was too shocked to hear what he told us next. Naruto? The nine-tailed fox demon? My family had already talked to me about that day, of course. It was part of Konoha's history, so even children learned it at school. But I had never known Naruto had something to do with this, even from afar. And I had never expected the adults, and even less the Hokage, to forbid all the adults to talk about it, and to hide the truth to their children, to Konoha's next generation of ninjas. All the young shinobis studying at the academy had been taught to avoid and to hate Naruto without even knowing why, just because of that. I could not believe it. Tears began to fill up my eyes, and I let them roll down along my cheeks. Does it mean our lives had been built up on lies? If that's so, is there anything that they hid from us? Of course, we did not have to believe Mizuki. Maybe he was lying, as he had done for the scroll, but Naruto's being the nine-tailed demon fox had the merit to explain where the villagers' hatred came from. How much Naruto should feel betrayed. As he was crying in pain and shaking his head, wind came up around him. Nobody in the village had been taking care of him, because they could not make a difference between the demon itself and the person the demon was locked into. They had just thought they were one and the same, and that he would attack the village on day. Did not they understand? Did not they understand the way they treated Naruto was the best thing to do to make that fox appear again? All the memories of the citizen hating Naruto crossed my mind. I'm so sorry, Naruto. If only I had known. I started sobbing. Seeing we were not paying attention to our surrounding, Mizuki decided it was high time for him to attack, and threw a giant shuriken at us. I could only hear Iruka-sensei telling us to get down, and suddenly, he was above us, with that big weapon sticking out of his back. We found ourselves having drops of blood on our cheeks when he coughed in pain. Sensei, no. Everyone was looking at him in shock. A single word came out from Naruto's lips. Why? Because we're the same. When I lost my parents, no one seemed to care. They didn't have time for me. They just forgot I was there. My grades dropped. I became the class clown. I just wanted them to see me and know my name. My school wasn't good enough to get the attention, so I did crazy things. And then I had to pay for it. It was hard. Iruka's tears began to fall on our cheek to mix with blood, but our teacher continued. I know that's how you feel, Naruto. You feel lonely and it hurts inside. And I could have been there for you more, like Asuka has. I let you down. I'm sorry. No one should have to suffer that much. No one should be alone like that. Naruto's lip trembled, and I put my hands on my lips. I had no idea. I had no idea you had suffered so much, Sensei. He had no parents, just like Naruto, and I understood better why he had hated Naruto so much. He had somehow believed he was responsible for his parents' death. The attack 12 years ago on Konoha had destroyed many lives. But it was not Naruto's fault. He had suffered as much as anyone else had. You could not put the blame on a baby who was only a newborn at that time. He had not asked for the demon to destroy the village. He had not asked to have this demon inside of him. People should at least understand that. Don't make me laugh. Mizuki interrupted us. Iruka always hated you. He was orphaned because the nine-tailed fox killed his parents. And that beast is now inside you. He'd say anything to get the scroll from you. Then why Iruka would have saved Naruto if he hated him so much? He just confessed how he was like him when he was younger. What we had heard did not look like the speech of someone full of hatred and desire to take revenge. And I knew what I was talking about. Sasuke could have this type of look, not Iruka-sensei. In all case, Naruto did not wait any longer and took his cue to leave. He grabbed my hand to make me follow him while I was still in shock. Is all this really happening? Mizuki's attack? Iruka's speech? The scroll, the fox? From afar, I could hear Iruka-sensei yelling our names. We finally hid behind a large tree and sat down. It was hard for me to stop crying. I still could not believe all the adults had hidden the truth from us. Had the third Hokage really thought it was the best thing to do for the village and its inhabitants? Weren't we old enough to know the truth? Asuka, Naruto said with a sad voice. He could not say anything else, because another Naruto and Iruka-sensei suddenly arrived. Soon, it turned out that said Iruka was Mizuki in disguise, but also that Naruto was the real Iruka-sensei who had transformed. They were talented. I had really believed this was the real Iruka that was there, though I knew that Naruto was false, since the real one was sitting next to me. You're a fool. Why are you protecting that freak? He's the one who wiped out your family. I don't care what you say, cause you're not getting your hands on that scroll. Naruto gritted his teeth, the scroll still in his hands. I closed my eyes. I don't know what's on that scroll, but they both seemed determined to get it no matter what. As if you could stop me. Don't you get it? Naruto is just like me. How's that? He wants the scroll for his own power, and his own vengeance. That's how beasts are. He'll pour all his rage into the scroll and destroy everything, Mizuki explained. You're right, we were left speechless by those words. Naruto gasped and I felt my whole body shake. I guessed it was true all along. See, Iruka-sensei never really cared for me at all. Naruto? I put a hand on his shoulder. I myself was taken aback, to be honest. When Iruka had made that speech earlier, I had truly believed he cared for Naruto and that he had forgiven him for his parents' death. Had he just been lying this whole time? It was hard to believe our teacher could have engaged in double dealing. What did he think he was playing at? That is how beasts are. But that's not who Naruto is. He's nothing like that. Naruto's one of a kind. Works hard. Puts his whole heart into it. Sure, he messes up sometimes, and everyone jumps on him. But his suffering only makes him stronger. That's what separates him from being a beast. So you're wrong. He's nothing like the nine-tailed fox. He's Naruto Uzumaki, of the village hidden in the leaves. We both cried like we had never cried at those words. Naruto, Iruka finally understood. He finally understood you were a good person. This was why I had always dreamed to hear from the people in the village. To acknowledge Naruto's existence and to treat him like a normal person. Iruka-sensei really cared about Naruto. I smiled. Finally, someone was acknowledging Naruto's existence. We had both been waiting for this moment for a long time. Mizuki was not going to fool us any longer. From that moment on, we decided it was high time to protect our teacher, after all we had heard. When Mizuki was going to kill Iruka with the last big shuriken he carried on his back, I left our hideout and rushed to the ladder in order to protect him with my body, and so I believed I was going to die soon. However, Naruto had stepped in between Iruka-sensei and I and Mizuki, and sent the ladder flying backwards. He then skidded to a stop, standing the scroll everyone wanted up beside him. My teacher and I looked at him in shock. Naruto, if you ever lay a hand on my sensei or Asuka, I'll kill you. When Mizuki finally went back onto the offensive, Naruto used for the first time the new technique he had learned. He crossed his two fingers over his other two fingers, and made the shadow clone jutsu. Thousands of clones of the blonde surrounded us, in the trees and on the ground. I can't believe my eyes. Did he really do that? I thought, in awe. It was not just illusions like those we were learning at school, it was far beyond that. Even Sasuke and I, being the best students of our class, could not have done that. That's amazing. It did not take them long to beat Mizuki up. On the end, Naruto was standing above him, while laughing at the same time. Wow, you really got carried away this time. I turned towards our teacher, who was not in a very good shape. You okay, Haruka-sensei? I and Naruto giggled when we realized we had said the same sentence at the same time. He breathed. Yeah, what about you, Asuka? He asked in concern. I'm fine. He nodded in relief, then he another took a breath. Naruto, come here a minute. I've got something I want to give you. He asked the latter to close his eyes. While Naruto was surprised, he did not argue and did what he had been told to do. At first, I did not understand what was the meaning of all this, but then Haruka took his headband off his head, and I immediately knew what was going to happen. I gasped in joy and smiled brightly. Haruka put his forefinger on his lips and winked at me. I nodded happily. I did not want to spoil Naruto's gift. I can't believe it. He then removed and took off Naruto's goggles and tied the forehead protector around Naruto's head. He then allowed his student to open his eyes and congratulated him. Congratulations, you graduate. And to celebrate, I have a surprise. We're going out for ramen tonight. Naruto's lips twitched as if he was going to cry. Haruka-sensei. He tried to hug our teacher, but fell back down to the ground, with Naruto, and the three of us burst out laughing as the daylight was filtering through the three. The night had already come to an end, and we had not even noticed it. I'm so happy for you, Naruto. You're a true ninja, now. All the three of us made a group hug, before we happily left the forest, Haruka carrying Mizuki on his shoulder. I hoped Sasuke did not notice I had gone out. I sighed. With all what had just happened on this crazy night, my brother scolding at me was the least of my worries. I did not tell my brother what had happened on that night. It was a secret between Naruto, Haruka-sensei and I did not even know how he would react, and nobody was supposed to know about Naruto's true identity. Sasuke had not woken up yet when I had come back home, so I had quickly done the washing up, because I had left before doing it, and I did not want my twin to be suspicious about anything. Then I had put my pajamas on and I had slipped into my bed, as if nothing had happened. As soon as my head had gently touched the pillow, I had fallen asleep, only to wake up hours later, around midday. I hurried to get dressed and meet my brother in the living room. I was starting to get worried, he said when I greeted him. It's not like you to get up so late. I yawned. I had not slept from the night at all, with what had occurred with Naruto and our teacher. I was still very sleepy. If you knew the truth, big brother. Sorry I can't tell you about it for now. I know, but I didn't sleep very well, I explained. Let me guess. It is because of Naruto? I stretched. Amongst other things, I also had a nightmare about that night. Sasuke's body tensed and I sank into a chair. I had hoped I would sleep well, but the memories of what had happened during the massacre had flashed in my mind. Usually, it would happen when I had been stressed or if I have lived an emotional situation, so there was no need to wonder why I had dreamed of that with the recent events. Sometimes, Sasuke and I were so connected that we had our nightmares at the same time. I closed my eyes and sighed. I had not wanted to darken the mood, but we could not decide just not to talk about it, as my brother wanted to. I had already talked several times to him about trying to look happier or just lighten up, but it had not really changed anything. I always had that feeling Sasuke was holding some grudge about me for not wanting to kill Itachi, even if he might not be aware of it or refused to recognize it. But it's like that. There's no way I can kill Itachi with my own hands. I would just be a murderer in the end. I was not the type to think you fix an unfairness by a bigger unfairness, even if killing people was far beyond just an unfairness. Sasuke, on the other hand, he did not bother with all that. He was just living for the day he could finally kill our brother, but I did not really know what he was expecting after that. Was not it better to let the Jonin or the Anbu forces take care of that? Plus, my big brother is too young to defeat Itachi right now. I shook my head. If only things had gone differently. Well, Sasuke said, now that you're awake, you want to go to train with me? Can't we skip the training session for today? I pleaded him. It's Sunday, and we had just been promoted as genin. We should relax and enjoy. Suits yourself. But I'm not going to stay here and let Itachi that man become stronger than us. He began to step out of the room. So, I said while looking down, you still had not changed your mind about giving up on your revenge? What had not I said here? I saw my brother clenched his fists and then turn around to face me. After that, he slammed his hands on the table between us, and I believed I was going to fall of my chair. He had gritted his teeth and furrowed his brows. He had always been like that when Itachi's name was mentioned or when he was suggested to forget the idea of taking revenge on him. It never lasted long though, and as soon as he saw how he was behaving, he took a deep breath and apologized. "Sorry, sis. I know you've suffered just as much as I have. I did not mean to scare you. It's just, I want to destroy Itachi after all he had done to us, and no one will prevent me to kill him. Big brother, if only I knew how to alleviate his sorrow, maybe I could make him see what he was missing by dwelling on the past. After the massacre, each night, we have been crying together for months. Having Naruto by my side had helped me overcoming the pain I had felt from losing all my family, but Sasuke never really had somebody to help him. Of course, I had been there to support him as much as I could, but apart from me, nobody had really paid attention to him, and the behavior of our classmates had not been really helpful either. Sasuke's fan club had never really understood him, so Sasuke had somehow felt lonely and still was probably feeling that way. According to him, nobody in the village had ever known what we had been through. I had resisted the urge to tell him Naruto did, but then I had thought better of it. Naruto never had parents, so it was not the same thing. At least it was what Sasuke would have snapped back if I had ever told him that. "Hey," he said when he saw my face. "Don't worry. It'll be fine, okay?" With that, he poked my forehead. My eyes widened and filled with stars. It was one of those rare times he would touch my forehead this way. Before slaughtering our clan, Itachi used to do it to the both of us, when we asked him to train us. When he had left, Sasuke had not done it to me for a long time, because it reminded him too much of our eldest brother, but then, when I really was in low spirits or something of the kind, he would poke my forehead to cheer me up, as I kind of like this gesture. I felt like Itachi was with us, somewhere, and we were still the family we used to be before all of this happened. So, Sasuke doing that meant a lot, at least for me. Maybe he's right, on the end. I should not worry too much about him. He won't do anything stupid, he's way too rational for that. So I smiled at him, and say I would meet him at the training ground after I prepared bentos. I had not eaten much since lunch, yesterday afternoon, and my stomach was growling. That being done, I trained all the afternoon with my brother at throwing shuriken and using jutsu. When the day finally came to an end, I let Sasuke go back home alone and meet Iruka-sensei and Naruto at Ichiraku's noodle shop, as it had been planned last night. I had never felt so fine for a long time, and we talked for a good part of the night. Naruto still had his goggles, as he did not want his forehead protector to be scratched. It did not really surprise me, as Naruto was quite clumsy and far from being the most careful person on earth. When I returned to my bedroom, Sasuke was not sleeping yet, so he talked a little before going to bed, but I did not have the strength to tell him about Naruto's graduation yet. It was maybe better for him to learn it later, as they were not the best of friends yet. I hoped their relationship would change soon. The morning after, all the freshly promoted genin were expected at the plateau overhanging the Hokage rock. A photo of each young ninja had to be taken for our ninja registration form. All of us had to wear our headbands for this occasion, and had to come at a precise time slot. I was one of the first to pass, with my brother, in the morning, while some other would have to come this afternoon. Rumors had it that Naruto had painted his face and his hands in white with red symbols on it. The only thing he had agreed to tell to the photograph and all the people who questioned him about his look was that it was a work of art and he had thought of how he was going to look for 3 hours. Well, it was just another way for him to stand out. I was not sure the Hokage would like the idea, though. In any case, the photographer was just doing his job and by the end of the day he would have taken a picture of everybody. Since the orientation ceremony was tomorrow, class had been dismissed for the day, so we were free until tomorrow. On the afternoon, after we had lunched at our compound, Sasuke and I had decided to go for a walk in the village, since we did not have anything to do. My brother wanted to see the new weapons they had in store, and I was not against the idea of doing some shopping either. While Sasuke was trying to find what he was looking for in one of those stores, I had been to the jeweler in order to be given back a bracelet I had asked them to repair a few days ago. I was just quietly walking out the store when I heard someone call my name. It made me jumped. "Hey, Asuka." I looked around. "Naruto," I said with a smile when I spotted him. "What's up? Did the Hokage accept your photo?" Naruto had really looked strange this morning. The photograph had decided to talk about it to the third, and so the blonde had been ordered to meet him at his office after noon. Naruto, you really are somebody, you know that? So many things had happened to him in so little time. Of course he did, believe it. I just used my secret technique. By the way, isn't it the scarf I gave you the first time we met? You still have it? Sure I have. I grinned. You know I put that scarf every winter or when it's cold. That was not the first time Naruto was seeing me with his scarf, since I have always kept it and used it when I was too cold. My mother had been able to fix it, and I had always treasured this scarf afterwards. All that reminds me of the people I love is precious to me. The wind was blowing quite hard today, so when I had come back home earlier for lunch, I had taken the scarf with me when Sasuke and I had gone for a walk. And it really fits you, he stated, flashing a smile. So, you were at the jewelry? I nodded. Yeah, I had something to get back. Huh? What was it? He tilted. This. I showed him my wrist. Around him was a golden chain bracelet, with my first name and my last name in hiragana and katakana engraved on the first side, and my birth date engraved in kanji on the other side. It read, a sunray reflected on the chain bracelet and made it shine for a second. As Sasuke and I were twins, our clan had decided to make special jewels for the both of us. We had those since our birth, but the clasp of my chain bracelet had broken some days ago, so I had to have it fixed. Otherwise, he had never left my wrist, and Sasuke was always wearing his too. It was a reminder of when we were younger, and how nothing would be able to separate us. It was true I had never talked of this jewel to Naruto. He had probably already seen it at my wrist, but he had never asked questions about it, now that I came to think of it. It's a gift I had from my clan. Sasuke has the same. Mine broke and so they repaired it. While the blonde was looking at it, amazed, I noticed something off not so far from where we were standing. Naruto? He looked up in surprise and I pointed at the suspect spot in the street. Why is somebody hiding himself behind a brown sheet? There was a fence, at some miles away from us, and a young person was holding a light brown sheet, seemingly trying to blend into the background, but you could see his hands holding the sheet and his dark brown spiky hair stick out from said sheet. On top of that, the stripes of the fence were vertical and the ones of the sheet were horizontal. What is that supposed to mean? I wondered, blinking. Is that person spying on us or something? Well, if that was the case, maybe we had to tell this person we had seen her, so she could stop using this disguise, now. Naruto gritted his teeth and sweat dropped. His eyes twitched. Don't tell me he had come all the way here? He then turned around and pointed at the sheet. I know that you're following me, so just give it up, believe it. Since the person was not willing to comply, Naruto's eyes twitched once more. That's so obvious it's pathetic. I can't say I don't agree here. This person should learn to disguise at least a little better. There was silence for a few seconds, before we heard some snigger. Then, the person lowered the sheet enough to let his face be seen. You saw through my disguise, huh? The rumors about you are true, you're good. He then dropped the sheet and came towards us. It was actually an 8-year-old boy, with black eyes and messy dark brown hair tied up into a ponytail, or maybe it was the steel helmet he was wearing that gave this impression. With that, he was wearing a yellow t-shirt with the symbol of Konoha on it, and a blue scarf was around his neck. He also was wearing gray pants and the usual blue ninja sandals. All right, I'll be your apprentice, and you'll be my trainer, he said, pointing his forefinger at Naruto. And afterward, you got to show me that jutsu thing you did on Grandpa Hokage. I stepped back. Wow, that's a lot of information, all of a sudden. This is some kind of joke, isn't it? Besides, I'm with my best friend, right now. The blonde replied. Naruto, could you explain me what's going on? He let out a cry of surprise and nervously rubbed the back of his head. Then he asked the boy to wait for him here and he began to explain everything to me. Apparently, this boy, whose name Naruto did not know, was the third Hokage's grandson, and was studying with a teacher called Ebisu. Naruto was discussing with the Hokage about his photo from this morning. He had just used the jutsu technique to make him accept his photo when the boy had tried to attack the Hokage by surprise, and had miserably failed and fallen on the floor. He seemed to believe that nobody would dare to touch him, but Naruto had knocked him on the head, and ever since, he had been following Naruto in the streets of Konoha, trying to disguise in order not to be seen. And now he was here, and the Jinchuriki did not know how to get rid of him once and for all. Naruto, it looks like you've been messing up again. I did not know the Hokage had a grandson. Well, he was sure old enough to have one. and I did not think he would appreciate the bad influence the blonde had on him. What's more, Naruto mentioned he had a sensei who was watching over him. He should be looking for the boy, right now. Should not we bring him back to his teacher? He must be really worried, now. But I guess it was up to Naruto to make the final choice. I just did not want him to get in trouble. I need a new trainer. The boy begged us when we came back to him. Please, boss. Naruto, who was going to refuse, and I, stared at each other in disbelief. Boss? The blonde repeated hesitantly. Yeah, the brown-haired boy nodded. You're the boss. Boss, boss, boss. I gazed at him with wide eyes, faced with so much determination and adulation. Wow, he's not joking around. I don't know what happened when you were with the Hokage, Naruto, but you definitely have a fan, here. And I did not think this young admirer was going to leave just like that. If one day we had been told Naruto would be that much admired by someone so young in the village, it might have been hard for me to believe it. First me, then Iruka-sensei, now this boy. Looks like your friend list is getting bigger every day, Naruto. I was really happy for him. He was beginning to create bonds with the other inhabitants of the Hidden Leaf Village, and maybe one day, everyone would finally acknowledge him. It was only a matter of time. And I knew he had enough determination for anything that he would have to face. Listen, you want to be a master ninja? Then believe it, you gotta learn to control your katra. It was still early in the afternoon. Naruto had decided to train the young boy who had followed us, and had asked me, or should I say begged, to come with him. So I had told Sasuke I was going for a walk with Naruto and would come back to the house later on. I did not really know why the blonde needed my help so much, but giving a hand was not a bad idea. I was afraid of the tricks he might learn to the Hokage's grandson, and I did not want him to get in big troubles. There were not as much people as I had expected, on the streets. We were quietly walking and Naruto was beginning to give the 8-year-old boy his first lessons. Your katra? The young child repeated dubiously. I said your katra, Naruto nodded. I sighed. Naruto, that's a great idea to teach techniques to your new fan, but you should just start by spelling the words correctly. We had been taught about chakra for years now. Had he really forgotten how to say it properly? He might be acting, but it looks too natural to be the case. Maybe it was a good thing I came along, after all. It looked like Naruto's apprentice did not need my help to see something was strange, though. Boss, I think you're talking about chakra, he said, looking at him. Naruto suddenly jumped and immediately tried to make his mistake look like it was not one by lying, in order to save face. Don't question me. Real ninjas say katra. Really? I didn't know that. That's cool, the brown-haired boy said excitedly. And here I thought he didn't need my help. If this boy started to believe all he was told, then he needed somebody to tell him to be careful about what he learned. I shook my head. I could not let him believe what Naruto, who was now wiping his forehead, had just said as if there was no problem. On top of that, this boy looked old enough to go to the academy, so he must have learnt there was only one way to say chakra and it was, well, chakra. On the other hand, he seemed to have a hard time with disguising, so he probably still needed some time to learn all what he had to learn. 8 years old, I shivered. This was how old I was going to be when my parents had been killed by Itachi. Anyway, I did not want to think about that. Don't listen to him. He's teasing you, I said, stepping ahead of them. I then turned around to face them. Real ninjas said chakra, like anyone else. What? I knew it, the boy exclaimed, pointing angrily at Naruto. Well, he would have believed what Naruto had said to him if I had not said anything. The latter scratched the back of his head, and I sighed. Sorry Naruto, I had to tell him. You're supposed to be his trainer. You can't tell him what's coming into your mind just like that. His blue eyes begged for my help and I understood he wanted me to change the subject, which I did. We were here to learn, weren't we? Anyway, what do you know about chakra? The boy closed his eyes and left his right forefinger. Chakra is the element of life energy that is used to perform jutsu. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise and I clasped my hands. It was a good start. He should really be paying attention in class. That was what I thought, until he took out a scroll and began to read. The ninja arts combine physical energy from each cell in the body with mystical energy which is intensified through training and experience. When these two chakra mix, special hand signs allow the ninja to focus this combined energy for advanced jutsu. Know it all. You were just reading that whole thing. Naruto exclaimed. Well, you must admit it works well, I thought. Then, the two of them burst out laughing. Deep down inside, I was starting to like this boy. It was the middle of the afternoon when we finally ended up in that very same forest where our confrontation with Mizuki had happened. Naruto had been trying to learn his jutsu technique to the young boy, but the results had not been up to the efforts the two boys had made until there. To begin with, Naruto had asked his apprentice to transform into a 20-year-old woman with long brown hair tied in a ponytail. Unfortunately, he had actually transformed into a fatter version of said woman, and she had not appreciated it. She would nearly have beaten Naruto up if I had not asked her to calm down. After that, they had tried to do some research on female beauty. According to their own words, they had been kicked out of the bookstore a few seconds after having entered. And after that, icing on the cake, both Naruto and the brown-haired boy had tried to transform into women and gone at the onsen in order to spy on the girls while they were getting change. The latter had immediately recognized Naruto and kicked him off, and so the boys had been forced to leave. And now we were here. The boy and I were fine. However, Naruto had his whole face puffed up and he had a shiner, to the point where he could hardly open his eyes. He was groaning in pain, and I winced. They really got you, this time. Maybe Naruto should not have agreed to show his jutsu technique to his young apprentice. Maybe the latter was not ready to master it yet. Why do they only whack at me? The blonde complained. I'm sorry, Naruto. Maybe I should have done something so they would not have beaten you up like that. I'm sorry, the 8-year-old boy said in turn, and he stared at him in surprise. It's 'cause I'm the grandson of the Hokage. There was a silence. I smiled and put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Come on, now was not the time to be in low spirits, we had to keep our heads up. The apprentice needed to have more confidence in himself. Don't worry about it, I said. I think your trainer has prepared you enough so you're ready to learn the jutsu. You just need practice, am I wrong, Naruto? The latter smiled and gave a thumb up. I couldn't have put it better. Now the trick is to get all the curves in the right places. You ready? I'm ready, boss, he shouted back, on fire. And so, he transformed, and under Naruto's supervision, tried to improve this new technique. His first shot was not really good. He had transformed into a fat woman with spiky brown hair, big orange lips and pink underwear, and it was not attractive at all. Naruto ordered him to try again, and to make the woman skinnier. But then again, when the boy tried once more, the result was not more attractive, and Naruto told his apprentice to make the woman curvier. At the third shot, it was still far from perfect. Naruto groaned in frustration and gave other advice for the Hokage's grandson to follow, while I was cheering on the latter. It reminds me of how Naruto used to train to master this jutsu when he was younger. I had a feeling that this technique would turn out to be very useful in the future. I could not help but wonder if the Hokage would be pleased with his grandson learning what was considered as a devious jutsu. Naruto had told me the technique had worked on him, so it was clearly a way for the brown-haired boy to beat his grandfather. I just hoped he would not abuse of this jutsu when he would have mastered it, though. So, what's up with this obsession you've got with your grandfather? The blonde finally asked. That's right, he somehow seems to hold a grudge against the third, but I can't know why. You would think he's proud of having such a reputation, but I think there's more going on here. My grandfather named me Konohamaru, after the ancient name of the village. So it should be easy to remember. But no one calls me that name, not one person in the whole village. That's 'cause when they look at me, they don't see me. All they see is the honorable grandson of the third Hokage. No one knows who I am. I can't stand it anymore. It's like I'm invisible, like I don't exist. I hate that. That's the reason I've got to become Hokage now, so people know who I am. Naruto looked down thoughtfully. I see, so this is what it is all about. I didn't know. You just have the same dream as Naruto, then. Both of you want to be recognized for what truly you are, and not for what people see you as. I smiled. It was no surprise why the two boys were getting along so well. They had more in common than they thought. You know, Konohamaru, I said, looking at him in the eyes. Everybody has to deal with fame. Whether it is since your birth or comes later, and whether you want it or not. It's like this. You're known as the Hokage's grandson, but everyone in this village owns his own title he is known as. So don't take it too personally. Konohamaru blinked at me in surprise, and I looked down sadly. Naruto was known to be the nine-tailed fox. I was known to be a survivor of the massacre of the prestigious Uchiha clan, like my twin brother. Obviously, I was not going to tell this to Konohamaru, because it was too personal, but every person I could think of had something she was known for. Sometimes, the villagers did not see how it hurt people to see them for something they were not. They considered Konohamaru as the Hokage's grandson, and it was their way to show him respect, but it just had the opposite effect in the end. If they can't even remember his name, it's normal he is upset. It was still better than being considered as a brat like Naruto, or to be pitied like me and Sasuke. Get real, you think people are gonna accept a squirt like you? We both jumped and stared at Naruto. A kid can't just turn into a Hokage after a day or two, he explained. What? Konohamaru stood up defiantly, cut to the quick. He's quite right. It's not because you want to be Hokage that you'll necessarily become one. Especially as, it's not that simple. You keep saying, Hokage. Hokage. To really be a Hokage, you know what you'll have to do? Naruto and Konohamaru have the same dream. You're gonna have to defeat me in battle. As Naruto was widely smirking saying that, Konohamaru was facing him with strong determination and a bit of awe for the new rival he had just made. Things were going to be interesting. We were still sitting on the same tree trunk when somebody shouted as is. I found you. We all jumped and turned around to see a man about 28 standing at some distance from us, on a tree branch, with his left hand on his hip. He was wearing dark clothes. His roll-neck sweater as well as his pants were navy blue colored. You could not see his eyes for they were hidden behind the sunglasses on his nose. A large bandana was covering his head so you could not see his hair either. I blinked. What's wrong with him? He really scared me. He looked to be a ninja, and it did not took me long to have an idea about who he was. Hadn't Naruto mentioned that Konohamaru has a sensei who was watching over him? Well, I could not see his eyes but I could guess he was glaring at Naruto through his sunglasses. And Naruto seemed to have felt it too, for he was growling under his breath and his fists were shaking in anger. I looked up at Konohamaru's teacher again, with my hands on my chest, and I bit my lips when I saw he was staring at me too. Don't tell me that's the whole, nine-tailed demon fox thing in the cursed Uchiha clan? Again? Could not they stop with that? He jumped down to the ground across from the three of us, then said to Konohamaru it was time to go home. So, it is indeed his teacher. No way. His student replied, shaking his head. I'm learning how to beat my grandfather so I can get the title Hokage. Now don't get in my way. His teacher walked towards him, smirking at the same time, and I stepped back. Hokage is more than just a fighter. He must know virtue, honor, wisdom, and he must be skilled at 1,000 jutsu. You don't even know one jutsu. Konohamaru growled at those words, and made the ram hand sign. You're really going to use it, Konohamaru, huh? This man had been wrong when he had believed his pupil did not master at least one technique. The number of techniques did not suffice to make a good Hokage. There was much more than just that behind this title. Chakra covered Konohamaru, and we all looked at him in surprise. His sensei even stopped. Smoke soon engulfed him, and then disappeared a little. In place of Konohamaru was now a young and cute naked woman, who had her hand behind her head and winked at the sensei. Konohamaru teacher's jaw dropped as he let out a cry of surprise. A vein popped on his head. I must say we were all somehow taken aback, this time. If someone still doubted it, well, Konohamaru had mastered the jutsu once and for all. It was not sufficient enough to defeat his sensei though. But I would never have believed Konohamaru to make such progress. Maybe one day he would be able to defeat his grandfather, surpass the ninjas of his generation and make his dream come true. Well, he still had to fight Naruto for that one. The teacher then grabbed the end of Konohamaru's blue scarf and tried to pull him. However, the Hokage's grandson was not willing to budge. He was trying to escape his sensei, moving his arms as if he was swimming. Honorable grandson, stop this. Right now. Naruto's turning you into a delinquent. Only my special training can put you on the fast track to becoming the Hokage. Just leave me alone, Konohamaru yelled back. Hey, I exclaimed, let him go. You're going to torn his scarf away. I went to help him, but before I can give the boy a hand, Naruto used his shadow clone jutsu. With that, the man finally stopped pulling on his student's scarf, and the latter looked at all the clones in awe. We were all surrounded by many Naruto's clones. I gasped. Wow, I've already seen that before but I think this technique will never stop impressing me. I understood better why the techniques the scroll contained had been forbidden to use, and why Mizuki-sensei wanted the scroll so much. It could have put the entire village in big danger for sure. Konohamaru's sensei was not a man to give up that easily, though. He pushed up his glasses with a smirk when he saw all the clones and took up the challenge. Thinking it was just about fighting some clones, he put himself into a defensive stance, ready for the battle to begin, boasting on the exceptional Jonin he was, and how this confrontation was going to be a piece of cake. I could hear Konohamaru cheering on Naruto, and I cheered on him too. It did not seem to bother Konohamaru's teacher, who was so confident about his victory. He just had not thought of what came next. Instead of attacking him head-on, the blonde used his jutsu technique on his clones. Said clones transformed into blue-eyed women with golden pigtails and whiskers, that is to say a feminine version of Naruto. Then all the clones rushed to the stunned Jonin and began to hug him and touch him, putting their arms around his neck and his legs. They sent the adult ninja flying into the air. He landed on the ground at some distance from us, twitching. Naruto transformed back just after, shouting that he had finally gotten the ninja with harem jutsu. You've combined the shadow clone technique and the jutsu. That was quite unpredictable, but it did work. I think I would never have been able to create such a technique. Konohamaru's sensei left us alone soon after his defeat. The day was coming to an end, as the sun was slowing setting down, giving the sky beautiful orange colors. The Hokage's grandson was still amazed and excited by Naruto's new technique, and could not stop talking about it. Oh man, I couldn't even beat that snobby trainer of mine. I want to be a Hokage so bad, but I keep messing up. Why can't I do it? You really think it's that easy? The blonde asked him, as if the boy had understood nothing. Konohamaru stared at him in surprise. To be a Hokage, you have to be the greatest of all ninjas. You have to prove yourself so everyone believes in you. Look at me. I've been through a lot already. I've been ignored, pushed away, and treated like I have the plague or something. Asuka was my only true friend, he stated, giving me a meaningful glance, and my heart melted at those words, though I tried not to show it. And after all that, I found another person who believes in me. To find that other person, I had to get knocked down a lot. So you better make sure that you're ready, he stated, with his hands on his hips. Naruto? I looked at him sadly. He really knew what he was talking about, wasn't he? I have always believed in you, and I always will. For what? Konohamaru asked, before Naruto turned his back at him. I softly put a hand on Naruto's shoulder as I saw some tears rolling down his cheeks. Then I turned to Konohamaru. Learning to be a ninja means a lot of sweat and a lot of tears. The 8-year-old boy did not say anything. Suddenly, the wind blew through the trees, gently ruffling everyone's hair. I closed my eyes for a moment. It's so pleasurable. Then I opened them again. Naruto and I smiled at each other. Then the blonde looked over his shoulder at Konohamaru and just grinned. By the way, there is no easy way to becoming Hokage. Believe it. At those words, Konohamaru looked at the blonde in awe before he frowned and turned his back to us in turn. He looked like he was very determined. I think he will be a serious rival for you, Naruto. Ha, who do you think you are anyway? Giving me a big lecture like that. That's it, I'm not going to be your apprentice anymore, he declared, before turning back to us again. From now on, we're rivals. He grinned and I rolled my eyes. Don't you think it was already the case before, Konohamaru? You and Naruto were bound to be rivals from the moment you got the same dream. The one of becoming Hokage. They just did not know it until today, that is all. Naruto smiled, a hand still on his hip. Well, I can't be your trainer anyway. 'Cause tomorrow Asuka and I start our advanced ninja studies. But I accept your challenge and someday we'll fight for the title of Lord Hokage. So let's both look forward to that day, Konohamaru. The latter's eyes widened in shock, and Naruto and I took our cue to leave. The blonde left his right hand in a farewell gesture. Good luck, Konohamaru, I thought. I look forward to the day you and Naruto will fight for the title too. Never give up no matter what, and you'll become a shooting star. But don't push yourself too much, alright? The boy straightened, determination flashing in his eyes, and saluted us. Wow, what an afternoon, I thought as the wind was blowing once again. It was just the beginning of our path to become true ninjas. The birds were chirping when I woke up, the morning after. Maybe the smell of the breakfast Sasuke was cooking had something to do with it, too. He smiled at me when I stepped in the kitchen. I greeted him sleepily while he was putting hot chocolate, bread, butter and fruit juice on the table. "So, today's finally the big day," he said while drinking his coffee. He had always hated sweet things, even for breakfast. I nodded. "Yeah, it's the orientation ceremony, and our first day as true ninjas. I wonder what is going to happen, now that we graduated." "I don't care, as long as we're together," Sasuke shrugged. He smiled at me and I smiled back. There were a lot of questions I was asking to myself, such as how things were going to work from now on, or what missions would I have to accomplish, and if I would be allowed to stay with my brother. I did not even know what I should expect today. I only hoped everything would go fine, and that I would not be too lost. That was the most important thing for me. I was quite excited about this ceremony. It was sure going to be a long and intense day. I could not wait for it. My kunoichi career starts now. I wish our parents were here to see it. And Itachi, too. Watch it, everyone. I'm going to make all of you proud of me. We were the first to enter the classroom. Iruka-sensei had told us to be here for 10 o'clock, but it was only 9, so Sasuke took a seat by the window and I sat down next to him. We passed time talking about the ceremony and what type of missions we were going to do now that we were ninja. What else could we have talk about? Shino arrived not so long after us, with Hinata and some others genin I did not know well. At 9:30, it was Kiba's turn to show up. Naruto stepped into the room a few minutes after him, and happily waved at me when he saw me. "Good morning, Asuka." I waved back while Sasuke was looking at him in surprise, which made Naruto frown in discontentment. "He passed?" my twin whispered in my ear. "You did not notice the forehead protector on his head?" I whispered back. "If he's here it's indeed because he succeeded. It's a long story, though." Sasuke just rolled his eyes in annoyance and let his chin rest on the back of his hands, before he looked by the window what was happening outside. It seemed he had just decided to give Naruto the cold shoulder and ignore him, which was not very surprising from him. I sighed, still waving back at the blonde. Those two should better not be placed in the same team. Chaos would ensue if that should happen. "You're ready to become a true ninja?" Naruto asked with a grin. "I should be the one asking you this question. After all, you still have a lot to learn if you're hoping to surpass all the Hokage. Hey, just wait and see. One day, I will be better than you, believe it." "We'll see that." Sasuke did not talk anymore. Naruto told me he had met Konohamaru on his way to school, a few minutes ago, and that the boy was really decided to fight him, which was no surprise for me, with everything I had learned about him yesterday. The classroom filled with more and more genin as minutes were passing by. Choji and a bunch of students arrived at 9:45, closely followed by Shikamaru, who arched a skeptical eyebrow at Naruto when he spotted the blonde talking to me. "Huh? What are you doing here, Naruto? This is not for dropouts. You can't be here if you haven't graduated." Naruto turned toward him, and though I could not see it, his smile was probably one of the brightest he had ever given to anyone. "How yeah, you see this? Do you see this? Open your eyes, Shikamaru, it's a graduation headband. We're going to be training together. How do you like that?" The blonde grinned and I giggled when I saw surprised flash in Shikamaru's eyes. He did not say anything and just put his hand on his left hip, staring at Naruto as if he was the weirdest person he had ever seen, and maybe it was the case. "What's this face, Shikamaru? Come on, didn't you used to play with Naruto when we were younger?" I noticed he was one of the few who had not put their headbands on their forehead. His was tied up around his left arm. "Let me put it to you this way. I look great in this headgear, like it was made for me. Believe it," the blonde added as he was playing with said headband. I looked over my shoulder and saw Hinata, who was looking at Naruto and slightly blushing. There's at least one person who looks happy that Naruto passed. She really seems to care about him a lot. Hinata had always been shy, and I wondered what could go on her mind right now. Before I could figure it out, though, noisy footsteps were heard in the corridor. It looked like two persons were running to the classroom. Sasuke and I looked at each other knowingly. The two most important members of his fan club were about to come in. And indeed, the white door of the classroom suddenly swung open, with Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka both standing in the doorframe. Sakura had long pink hair. Rumor had it that Sasuke liked long hair, but I knew better. As he was my twin brother, I knew he did not care at all about the length of hair. Sakura was wearing a red kimono with a white circle, which I supposed to be the symbol of her clan. Under that kimono she was wearing black shorts, and she had also blue ninja sandals like all of us. She had tied up her headband on her hair, just like me, and not on her forehead, like Naruto or many other ninjas. She was a hot-tempered girl, from what I knew, and when you got on her nerves, you should better be prepared. Just next to her was Ino, best friend and best foe since they've known they shared the same love for Sasuke. They had become love rivals. Ino was wearing a similar outfit to Sakura, except hers was purple and she had white bandages around her legs and her waist. Her headband was around her waist too. She had tied up her hair into a ponytail. Her hair was paler than Naruto's golden hair, though. She had also the same arm guards as Sasuke, and I did not know if it was a real coincidence or if she was only trying to catch the latter's attention. In any case, she was trying to catch her breath, and Sakura too. They raced from their home to the academy? They had never done it before, and I did not see why they needed to do so. They were sweating and out of breath now, and everybody was staring at them. But they did not seem to care anyway. "I'm first," they both exclaimed at the same time, extending their arms. Does the winner of their race is supposed to win something? I wondered, as Sasuke rolled his eyes and looked by the window. The two girls were breathing hard, which was no surprise, since they had run all the way to school. "I won again," Sakura, Ino sneered, looking at her. "Give it up. I had to look back to see you. My toe was at least 1/10 of an inch ahead. Have you always been that delusional?" I sighed. Why are they arguing about something so futile? It was not as if the fate of the world had something to do with this race. The loser was not going to die. Sasuke was not even looking at them. Was it so important for the two girls to win it? Maybe it was their way to show each other that they were a better ninja than the other, but for now, they were just making a spectacle of themselves. I was about to say something to Naruto, when I saw his attention had been caught by the two girls. Just like almost everybody else in the class, except my brother. What is he thinking of? I thought, blinking. When I focused on the two girls in turn, Ino had her hands on her hips, glaring at Sakura, who was herself looking in our direction, smiling. I think she found where Sasuke was. There would not have been many reasons why she was looking at where we were, and even less reasons to explain why she was grinning. I turned towards my brother, who was not looking by the window anymore. "Be careful, big brother, fangirl's coming." As if he had read my mind, he just closed his eyes, annoyed. Naruto stood up and waved at her when she arrived. "Hi Sakura, what's up?" She pushed him so hard he fell to the ground. My eyes widened in shock and I stood up in turn. "Naruto." I ran to his side and extended my hand, asking if he was all right. He rubbed the back of his head and told me that he was fine. We both smiled at each other and I helped him to get back on his feet. "I'm glad you're okay." Then I sadly looked at Sakura, who was greeting Sasuke. I was very disappointed about her attitude. Naruto could have been severely injured, and it was as if she did not care at all. Could not she understand there was not only Sasuke in life? Could not she act nicer about people around her? I shook my head. I could not stand this type of behavior. Things turned bad when Sakura and Ino started to argue to know who was going to sit next to Naruto, grabbing the Pinky's arm. "I walked into the classroom before you did. Everybody saw it," the blonde said in anger. You arrived at the same time. There was no really winner. And I'm quite sure most of the class did not see it and just did not give a care about that silly race of yours." Seriously? They were still fighting for that? All that only to get Sasuke's attention? You would have thought it was going to calm down, but it was without considering other fangirls of my brother who decided they had their say and joined Sakura and Ino in their fight. It was about who would have the right to sit next Sasuke. The latter just turned his head and shut in eyes in annoyance, while the girls were shouting and yelling. Hello there, does anyone bother to care about Naruto, who might have been severely injured? I sighed in disbelief as the girls were still arguing. I certainly did not have expected things to go that way on my first Genin day. The seat next to Sasuke was mine, anyway, so why all this fuss? While the girls were still arguing, Naruto, more furious than ever, jumped on Sasuke's desk before I could do anything to stop him, and crouched down to be at my brother's level and look at him in the eyes. Well, glaring would have been a better world here. I gasped. "Naruto, what do you think you're doing, glaring at my twin like that? The girls are already angry, don't make things worse." Unfortunately, the girls had already noticed Naruto being on Sasuke's desk and started yelling at him. They did not care about Naruto being pushed hard by Sakura, but they did care about him when he was close to Sasuke. Okay, everything was fine, then. Sasuke opened his eyes and frowned when he saw Naruto in front of him. Sakura yelled at the blonde and ordered him not to glare at Sasuke. Naruto then looked at her hesitantly. I bit my lips. Sakura was right. Naruto did not want to face a bunch of angry fangirls. I even doubted his shadow clone technique would stand a chance against them. I have a bad feeling. If I don't do something, this going to end badly. You would think Naruto would have thought better before challenging Sasuke with all these angry faces looking at him, but he did not jump out of the desk and focused on my twin again. When I saw how their eyes were flashing, I decided to walk to Naruto before it was too late and something terrible happened. Little did I know that it was already too late. Before I could reach my friend, one of our classmates, with spiky brown hair tied in the same way as Iruka-sensei, accidentally nudged at Naruto, making the blonde move forwards. Sorry, did I bump you? He asked, glancing back. There was a dead silence, and everybody in the classroom suddenly stopped moving and yelling. My dark eyes widened in shock at the scene that was happening right in front of me, and I could only put a hand on my mouth. Sakura and Ino said a few words, taken aback, and so was everyone in the class. Nobody had imagined that such a thing would happen. Naruto and Sasuke's lips had locked. Oh my, in only a few minutes, a lot of things had happened. I had definitely not imagined the start of my career to begin like this. There had been this race between Sakura and Ino. Now there was this kiss between Naruto and Sasuke. What else was going to happen after that? Wow, even if it was an accident, it's still. I did not know how to describe this. It had been so unexpected. I would not have believed that the mouths of the two students who hated each other so much would touch one day, especially not in such a way and under such circumstances. No need to say Sakura looked like an atomic bomb had been dropped on her, and Ino was not any different. I watched as Naruto and Sasuke stopped kissing and turned their head in opposite directions in disgust, each of them sending spluttering to the ground with their hands on their throats. I would not have been surprised at all if they had thrown up. This is the moment when all the girls' dream of stealing Sasuke's first kiss vanishes, I though, still in complete and utter shock. It sure was funny, to an extent, but I was too much in disbelief to laugh, and I would have been the only one, anyway. The boys had their mouth wide open, and the girls were going to kill Naruto on the spot. I could feel how mad they were. And so could Naruto. Danger, he stated before he looked at them. Naruto, you are so dead, Sakura said, very pissed off. Hey now, it was an accident. Naruto swore, putting his hands up in the air in an attempt to prove his sincerity and calm them down. Too bad it did not work. You're finished, the young girl shouted, cracking her knuckles. Hold on, I looked at the fangirls in shock. What was that supposed to mean? Don't tell me they're going to beat him up just for all this? It had all happened so fast. How could they be so angry at Naruto just for a kiss? There were more important things than that in life. It was not what true ninja were supposed to do. Naruto gulped in fear as he saw all the mad girls coming for him, and tried to find a way out. He soon reached the edge of the desk, ready to fall. The fangirls were going to make mincemeat of him if they laid a finger on him. And I just could not accept that. So I did what my heart was telling me. As Sakura was ready to punch Naruto hard on the face, I stood in front of her and instantly grabbed her wrist. The pink girl's eyes went wide. Anger, shock and incredulity flashed into her eyes, as her hand was still in the air and clenched into a fist. I could see on her face she was surprised by how quickly I had countered her. I myself had not really realized it yet. And it was not what mattered for now. I was careful not to hurt Sakura in any way while firmly holding her hand, but she had gone way too far this time, and I could not accept this. I could not tolerate the way she had treated Naruto from the moment she had entered this classroom, with Ino. She might have seriously hurt him, when she had pushed him out of her way while he was waving at her. And it was just because she wanted to be next to Sasuke. Did she realize what she had done? Did she realize her behavior was not the one that was expected from a ninja in training? How could she ever call herself like that and despise so much people around her? She was not a child anymore. She had to behave. As Naruto said, it was just an unfortunate accident, Sakura. There's no need to be so angry for that, I smiled softly. My brother, who had recovered from that disastrous kiss, smirked, and I could feel Naruto looking at me in surprise. All the fangirls stared at me in awe, and stepped back, except a few of them, including Ino. Seeing that she would not win by sheer weight, she just let her arm down and I let go of her wrist. She turned away in disdain, gritting her teeth, and I blinked. Wow, that was fast. I did not even think before acting. It's as if my body had moved on its own. It was really surprising. I would never have believed I could move like this, but Sakura needed to be reminded of the fact she could not do anything she wanted just because of Sasuke. I had always seated next to my brother, since we had enrolled the academy, and it was not going to change. I didn't think he would have permitted it anyway. Naruto sighed in relief. Thanks, Asuka. These girls were crazy. Don't mention it, I replied, with a soft smile. I think we should sit down, now. It's going to time for the ceremony to start. He nodded, and we walked back to our desk. Girls started gossiping, and some of them were casting side glances at me, but I did not really care about that. I was too busy talking to Naruto. Some minutes later, Iruka entered the classroom, and everyone went silent. He was holding a sheet of paper that he put behind his back, before walking in front of the class with a gentle smile on his lips. I looked at him in excitement. So, this is for real, our shinobi career really starts today? I smiled in turn. This was going to be so exciting. Our teacher began to speak, giving us what looked like to be a welcome speech in our new ninja career. As of today, you're all ninja. To get here you faced difficult trials and hardships. But that's nothing. What comes next will be far more difficult. Now you're only genin, first level ninja. All the genin will be grouped in a 3-man squad. Each squad will be led by a jonin, an elite ninja. I gasped in surprise. So, this is how things are going to work, then. Naruto blinked and Sasuke straightened up on his seat. 3 people, huh? I can't wait to see who my teammates are going to be. I got along with everybody in our class, so there was not really somebody I was afraid to be put in a team with. I guessed it was not up to us to decide, anyway. It would have been too easy, otherwise. Everybody would have teamed up with the persons he liked the most, and this was not how the ninja system worked. Well, someone's gonna be in Sasuke's group. I wonder who, Ino said for herself, looking meaningfully at Sakura, who could not see her. And yet, the latter turned and glared at her. My sweat dropped. It's like they're connected or something. How is it even possible? I shook my head and tried to focus on our teacher again. I hoped Ino and Sakura would not be too much disappointed if they were not in Sasuke's team. And even if they were, I wondered if they really knew how things would happen. I mean, we were going to be ninja and Sasuke had only revenge as his goal, so did they really think they would stand a chance with him? He was not interested in love, so why these 2 girls were so determined to be with him? This was really weird and unbelievable after all. From now on, we were ninja. We were not little girls anymore, and we had to do our best. I did not need to look at Sasuke to know what he was thinking. A team with 3 genin would slow him down. I was sure this was what was getting on his mind right now. I then glanced at Naruto. His right elbow was on the table and his head was resting on his hand. I wonder what he's thinking about. Is it about Sakura? She had nearly beaten him up, a bit earlier, but he did not seem to be angry at her, so maybe he wanted her to be on his team. And I'm sure he obviously don't want Sasuke to be his teammate, I thought, chuckling. If only those 2 could have gotten along, things would have been easier. They were the persons I liked most, and yet they were always at each other's throats. Well, the blame was mostly on Naruto, as he always had this need to challenge my brother, while the latter did not care about the blonde at all. I was also wondering in which team I would be, and it made me nervous. I can't wait. We want each squad to have a balance of strength and abilities, so that's how we set them up, Iruka-sensei explained to us. I see. So it means people who have some weakness in a certain field will be with persons who haven't. The main goal is to counterbalance everyone's strengths and weaknesses, then? That's a good idea. I just knew I had the best marks at school, with my brother, but otherwise I did not really know about the others' marks, so I totally was in the dark about who I would be teamed up with. Well, it was not going to last long, because Iruka showed us the list. I will now announce the squads. The suspense was interminable. Of course, Iruka began with the first team. That was made up of classmates I did not really know well. It was the case with all the other squads. He was reading the names on the list, and each time I believed it was going to be my turn, but no. And it was very difficult to be patient. Sasuke had always his chin resting on the back on his hand, and he looked more serious than ever. Naruto, on the other hand, had let his head lie on his arms, directly on the desk, and it looked like he was sleeping. I don't know how many minutes passed, before Iruka suddenly announced. Squad 7. Naruto Uzumaki. The blonde suddenly perked up when he heard his name. Asuka Uchiha. My eyes widened before I joyfully smiled, and I high-fived with Naruto. And Sasuke Uchiha. What? I looked at Iruka-sensei in surprise, while Naruto did not seem pleased at all with this new piece of information, and Sakura was looking at us. Well, at Sasuke, more precisely, as if it was the end of the world and that she was going to die tomorrow. And it was all because she was not going to be in Sasuke's squad. She had already been placed in another team than ours. Naruto's eyes and mouth opened in shock, and he looked down, mumbling something about the fact that he was doomed. I smiled to him, in order to cheer him up. Come on, Naruto, it won't be so difficult, I promise you. Yet, he was still in low spirits. I then turned towards Sasuke and raised my hand so we could high-five too, but he seemed just as pissed off as Naruto, and did not even look at me. Okay, I knew you two didn't get along well, but wow, you really weren't joking around. They should better find a way to work together, or we would never been able to be a team and accomplish missions. They had to put their pride aside. Hinata looked at Naruto in disappointment. She knew him being in our team meant that she would not be with him, and I thought this why what she would had wanted. But, as the proverb says, you can't always get what you want. I understood her feelings though. It was sure way funnier to be with people you liked, and well. Teams had clearly not been built up about relationships between the students, because otherwise, there was no way Naruto and my twin would have been in the same team. After our squad, Iruka-sensei continued calling the different teams. It appeared Hinata, Kiba and Shino were going to be in Team 8. Kiba smirked when he heard his name and Shino just moved his glasses up. I knew Kiba used to attack head-on with his dog, while Shino preferred to attack from afar. I knew that because there had been some times at school when we had had to talk a little about our clans. The only one who had not had to do that were Naruto, since he did not really know about his family, and my brother and I, since our clan had been slaughtered. So it had been decided we would not participate. If only Itachi had not done that, I would sure have been proud to talk about my family. I heard Ino grunting behind me, and she clenched her fists in anger. Sakura was probably in the same state of mind. I sweat dropped. Come on, they're not angry at me just because I am in the same team as my brother? I was just his twin, not his love interest or another fangirl ready to hurt other just because they came too close from him. How did you get in his group? She shouted at me, irritated. I turned around to face her, but before I could answer, Shikamaru talked first. He looked at her in disbelief, while his head was resting on his left hand, and that his right arm was laying on his desk. He had spiky dark black hair tied up in a short ponytail, and the symbol of his clan on his gray jacket, a symbol that looked like the peace symbol, actually. His t-shirt had partly been made with nets, they were often used for ninja clothes. He frowned. I don't get it, what do you see in a guy like that? He's not so special, he said, closing his eyes. Don't try to understand, Shikamaru. It's just one of their fangirl moments. You can't even recognize them anymore when they're like that. The latter opened his eyes and smirked at me. Ino was boiling inside, but however tried to do something for appearance's sake. Both of you are so full of yourselves. Jealousy is a terrible thing. I'd hate to be on your squad, Shikamaru, she said, before she closed her eyes and let her chin rest on the back of her hand. Shikamaru arched a brow and looked at me as if I knew what she could have possibly meant by that, but I just shrugged and turned around. I did not specially want to be involved in whatever problem was between them. Naruto and Sasuke being in my team was enough. I had to admit I did not really understand what she meant by jealousy anyway. Me, jealous? There was nothing I envied Sasuke for. He was my big brother, and we had the best marks of our class. What else could I have asked for? I was fine with not having a fanboy club at my feet, if that was what Ino was implying when she had talked about jealousy. It was not because Shikamaru did not find my bother that much interesting that I would hold a grudge against him. If everyone liked each other, then there would have been no wars in the ninja world, and things might have been better. But we were all different, and to me, it was a good thing. Now, Squad 10, Iruka announced. Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara. Behind me, I heard Ino gasp in shock and Shikamaru tease her. "Ha. Did you say something about hating to be on my squad?" She glared at him and grunted. "It looks like the boot is on the other foot," I thought, giggling. Ino, who did not want to find herself with Shikamaru, actually had been put in Team 8 with the latter. Nobody could say it was not comical, even a bit. And there still had more surprises to come. "And Choji Akamichi," said Choji, just plunged in hand in his packet of crisps and continued to eat, as he had been doing since the beginning of the orientation. Ino took her head in her hands and shook it in despair. Choji quickly glared at her. Ino seemed to be upset about how the team had been set up. However, the ones that should have really been displeased with it were Shikamaru and Choji. For me, Ino was lucky they did not hold a grudge against her for the way she behaved with them. This was not with this attitude she would become a true ninja. It seemed Ino was not the only one who was annoyed with the team formation, though. "Iruka-sensei." Naruto stood up and shouted after Iruka said it was all for the squads. "Why do a great ninja like me has to be in a same group with a slug like Sasuke?" he asked, pointing at my twin brother. I sighed. "Naruto, can't you try a little to get along with him? We're a team, now." Iruka-sensei said, closing his eyes. "Sasuke has the best scores of all the graduating students. Naruto, you have the worst scores." He frowned, putting his hands on his hips. All the class began to laugh. Our teacher continued, "To have it balanced groups, we put the best students with the worst students." Naruto groaned in frustration and clenched his fists in anger. "Don't complain, Naruto. You asked for it, so you're reaping what you sowed. Just get sure you don't get in my way, loser," Sasuke said, without even looking at Naruto. My eyes widened before I pinched the bridge of my nose. Oh, I have a feeling this is never going to end. Who got the idea to put those two together? Naruto was clenching his fists so hard that his skin was turning red. He gritted his teeth and turned towards Sasuke, completely mad. "Hey, what did you say? Hard of hearing?" The class started to laugh again. "Naruto, what did you get yourself into?" I thought, annoyed. Sasuke was not better than him either. I frowned at my twin, but he did not look at me. I sighed before grabbing Naruto's wrist, which made him jump, and he stared at me in surprise. "Please Naruto, sit down. Everybody's looking at you, right now. And I think you don't want that, right?" He looked around us to see that, indeed, all the students were laughing and mocking him. He mumbled and finally sat down in annoyance. His body was still shaking in anger and frustration, though. Things were going to be tougher than I had thought it will be. Whoever our instructor would be, he would have his work cut out. Iruka coughed. "After lunch, you'll meet your new Jonin teachers. Until then, class dismissed." Sasuke had told me to follow him, and had rushed towards the door of the classroom, with me hot on his trail. We had left the academy and had gone for a little walk in the village. When I had asked him why he had been so hurried to run off from the classroom, he had told me he just wanted to be alone with me, and did not want crazy fangirls to follow him. I could clearly understand it. It was probably exhausting to have girls such as Ino or Sakura always fighting just to get your attention. I wish Naruto could have come with us, though. Sasuke had not wanted him to come along, so I was a bit disappointed, but it was probably better that way. They would have just gotten on each other's nerves, anyway. And the three of us were in the same team, so we will see each other soon, without a doubt. By 11 o'clock, we had found a quiet place to eat. It was an old workshop carpenters once used, but nobody had been working in it for a long time. Some workmen were supposed to renovate the place and make it fit to live in, but they had not begun yet, and it had become the perfect place to relax, to play with others, and also the perfect place to eat. So we had entered by the open window and had decided to have a lunch here. My brother had took out from his bag the 2 rice balls and the drinks he had prepared. We had sat down on the wooden floor and we had begun to eat together. Our conversation had soon started to revolve around Naruto. I still felt bad for him about having left him alone, but my brother persisted on the fact that he was just a loser. And yet, when I left to go to the toilets that were downstairs, I found Sasuke tied up, with ropes around his wrists and his ankles, and a gag on his mouth when I came back to the room. The drinks and the rice ball that were on the window ledge earlier were now on the ground, and the wooden transom was closed. I gasped and quickly helped my brother to get rid of his ties. We both stood up after that. "Are you fine? Who did that to you?" "It's okay, yeah," he said, rubbing his wrists. Naruto, however, I would not say the same for him. I looked at him, puzzled. What did he mean by that? What was wrong with Naruto? I knew those two could not stand each other. Still, I had hoped they would try to get along and would stop picking a quarrel with each other, now that they were in the same team. We need to find this idiot. Now, he said, opening the transom and ready to leave by the window. Wait, what? Why? What happened? You'll know when we find Naruto. Didn't you want to see him? I looked down and slightly blushed. Yeah, that was right. I thought it would have been nice to let him eat with us. But because of my brother's pride that he had not been able to put aside, the blonde was alone for lunch. I can't say I don't want to see him, but I know my brother too well. I'm sure he doesn't want to see Naruto just for pleasure. What is he up to? And Sasuke refused to tell me who had attacked him. I guess if I want to know the truth, then I had no choice but come along with Sasuke, I thought, before I took a deep breath. Plus, I would make sure he did not do anything stupid once he will find the young boy. The blowing wind ruffled Sakura's pink hair as it was carrying some leaves. Sitting on a gray bench, the girl closed her brown lunchbox in disappointment. She still could not believe she was not in Sasuke's team. She had really hoped she would be with him, actually. There were 27 students in her school year. The teachers were actually very careful about having a number you can divide by 3, since ninja squads were always made of 3 students and 1 supervisor. When she had learnt that, Sakura had crossed her fingers, hoping she would be in the same team as the boy of her dreams. But her hopes had vanished when Iruka-sensei had said she would be in Team 6, with 2 other boys. Well, it was not that bad. In a sense, 6 was just before 7, right? But still, it hurt her. She had average marks, so since teams had to be balanced, she had hoped that she would be with Sasuke. Would not it have been balanced, this way? She put her lunchbox next to her, wincing. Actually, to be in the same team as Sasuke would have meant to be in the same as Naruto, and she was not sure she could have borne that. That boy was such a nuisance. He was always trying to play for laughs. He was selfish and did not care about anybody, so she was not losing anything by not being in his team. Still, Sasuke did not deserve to be with such an idiot. He was probably happy to be with his little sister. Sakura was still shocked of the fact the girl had caught her wrist so quickly, but Naruto should never have been with him. She definitely did not like this blonde. She sighed. Said blonde had suggested her to have lunch together, even if they were not in the same team, in order to get to know each other. She had obviously refused, though. She had shaken her own teammates off for a good reason, and it was not to have lunch with Naruto. It was to have lunch with Sasuke. This way, she hoped she would get closer to him. Then Sasuke would tell Iruka-sensei how much he liked her and how much he wanted Sakura to be in his team instead of that stupid Naruto. After all, he was an Uchiha, right? The teachers sure would listen to him. He was coming from a prestigious clan. But for that to happen, she needed to find Sasuke, so she had tried to call his name, but he had been nowhere to be seen. And now she had told Naruto where to get off. She was all alone on this bench, waiting for Sasuke to come. There was not much time left before going back to the classroom. She really had to find him now, or it would be too late. The wind blew once more and she sighed, before she took her head in her hands. Did she have a chance with Sasuke even if she had such a big wide forehead? She raised her head in surprise when she felt someone looking at her. She gasped when she recognized who this person was, and her eyes widened in surprise. Could it be possible? Sasuke was just in front on her. He was leaning against a tree, his arms crossed on his chest. And he was smiling at her. For real, Sasuke, he's looking right at me. That look in his eyes. She blushed and imagined, during a few seconds, how Sasuke would tell her forehead was so wide and charming and how it would make him feel like kissing it. She soon pulled herself up though. It was just her imagination. Things never happened like in fairy tales, right? She took her head in her hands and sighed. She was just dreaming, that was all. Sasuke could not love a girl like her, could he? She had always tried to catch his eye, and yet, she had never succeeded, so it would not happen now. Sakura, your forehead is so wide and charming. Sasuke said, coming closer, and she gasped, looking up at him. It makes me feel like kissing it. The pink-haired girl blushed as she had never blushed before and her emerald eyes twinkled brighter than any star in the nocturnal sky. That is, until all her dreams were suddenly shattered. Just kidding. That's the kind of dumb thing that Naruto would say. I want to ask you something, he added, sitting next to her while she was looking down, depressed. She stared at him in surprise. She was particularly surprised when he asked her what she was thinking of Naruto. What's the matter with that stupid boy? She did not want to talk about him. And yet, she could not help herself telling Sasuke how Naruto knew his feelings and yet was trying to get on her way. Plus, he had never understood one single thing about her. He was just annoying. All I really want is for you to accept me, Sasuke. That's all, she stated, some lock of her pink hair partially hiding her face. You just want me to accept you? Sasuke repeated with wide eyes. Some birds chirped. Sakura looked at him shyly and blushed once again, for the third time. Had he finally understood what she really wanted? Yeah, that's how I feel, she admitted. I'd do anything for that. She then turns towards Sasuke and leaned in order to kiss him. His heart pounded in his chest when he saw the girl's lips coming closer to his. She had even closed her eyes, and she wanted him to kiss her. He gasped and shook his head. I can't do that. I don't want things to happen that way, I just wanted to know what she thought of me. He thought. Before things went too far, he suddenly stood up from the bench, making Sakura open her eyes in surprise. Sasuke? The latter wanted to answer to her, but suddenly, his stomach ached and he put his hands on it, in pain. My stomach. What timing? The boy swore to himself, his eyes twitching. He needed to go to the toilets. Now, his stomach hurt too much to go away with it. He just could not stay here for now. He did not feel well at all. Ouch, ouch, ouch. He did not lost time and started running off towards the academy. There he would find what he needed. He had to be really quick, and hope that a certain someone would not show himself in front of Sakura while he was not here. Otherwise, he did not really know how things would go. Hey, what's the matter? Sakura asked, in surprise. I'll be right back, Sasuke said, waving at her. I did not know Sasuke was so shy. Sakura thought. She could not help blushing and put a finger on her lips. Maybe he needs a little time to get ready, she thought to herself. Well, it did not bother her. Sasuke had nearly kissed her. She just had to wait for him to come back, and then they could finally be together and maybe he would even date her. She had been waiting all her life for this moment, so she could wait a little longer. We're going to be together. We're going to be together. When she would tell Ino that Sasuke had kissed her, she would get mad for sure. Too bad for her. Sakura chuckled. This was going to be the best day of her life ever. She was going to wait for Sasuke's return on that bench, and then they would kiss. Everything was all right. She was just so far off. It was around midday when we finally arrived near the academy. My brother had decided to go there first, because he thought it was likely the place where Naruto would be. He still had not told me what it was all about, so I was a bit worried, to tell the truth, but at least, I was there and I could do something if, by chance, things went wrong. At least, I hoped so. I wonder why Big Brother is so determined to find Naruto. I thought they hated each other? I sighed. Well, there was no need to torture myself for now. Everything would become clear in due time. My eyes widened when I saw none other than Sakura sitting on a stony bench. What is she doing here? Shouldn't she be eating with her own teammates? This was quite strange. I thought lunch was a time when you could bond with your squad. What was she waiting, sitting here all alone? Maybe we should suggest her to have lunch with us? After all, she's in the same year school as us, so this would be the perfect moment to get to know each other. It was true she had been rude with Naruto this morning, but I held no grudge against her. We were only 12, after all, we were not supposed to be perfect. And I had the feeling that, one day or another, we might have to go in missions with her. So I did not want her to be my foe. We were from the same village, so we had to stick together, right? She was a fellow companion from now on. So, when she saw us and suddenly stood up, grinning, I waved at her and smiled. Hey Sakura, what's? Sasuke, you're back, she exclaimed. Don't be so shy, you bad boy. I stopped and blinked in astonishment. She just had totally ignored me and called my brother bad boy. All right, once a fangirl, always a fangirl, huh? I sighed. What had I been expecting from her, exactly? I should have known she just had eyes for my brother. Everyone had eyes for him, anyway. She's not joking around, I thought, when I saw her blushing, her two hands on her cheeks. Are you ready now? You know, mentally prepared? Because I am rearing to go. What is she talking about? Ready for what? I looked at her in disbelief. I simply did not understand what was the meaning of all that. As for Sasuke, he did not even care about her and keep walking. I would like to clarify something first. Sakura, what do you mean by mentally prepared? She stared at me as if it was the first time she saw me. My sweat dropped. Wow, sorry to bother you that much. Why was I the only girl she looked at that way? She used to be nice with me, before, but it was only to get more information about Sasuke, and it soon had gotten on my nerves. Ino, on the other hand, had asked about Sasuke too, but had tried to know more about me at the same time. Well, I hope we would soon all become friends anyway. Ah, there you are. Actually, Sasuke was about to kiss me, she stated, shrugging. My eyes widened in utter shock at those words. Oh my, we have a problem here, I thought, arching an eyebrow. There's no way Sasuke could have kissed her. The worst thing is that she seemed to be quite serious, though. She doesn't seem like she has invented anything. Yet, there was no way Sasuke could have been about to kiss her because he had been with me the entire time. Plus, he had never been interested in Sakura, so something was apparently off. If it was not Sasuke Sakura had been with, then someone had clearly transformed into him. But who could have done that? Now that I came to think of it, that type of joke could only have been made by. No, don't tell me it could be him? I wondered. Well, there were not many possibilities. But this person, really? It really cracked me up, and it was difficult not to laugh in front of Sakura, after the way she had been fooled. And the more hilarious was that she was not aware of it yet. How comical. My twin brother looked over his shoulder. He and I looked at each other knowingly. He did not really seem to be pleased with the joke. His brows had furrowed and his fists were clenched. He had also gritted his teeth. The good thing was, I think I understood the situation better than before. I had now an idea about why Sasuke was so desperate to find Naruto. The latter should better be careful from now on. He was about to find out the consequences of his joke soon. Naruto, what did you do? Sometimes he still acted like a child, that was unbelievable. Sakura was not very friendly with him, so why had he done something like that? We had to find him to know the answer to that question. And we should not say anything to Sakura, above all. Where's Naruto? We asked at the same time. Sakura blinked in surprise, and then she put her arms behind her back, with a strained smile on her lips. Oh, see, there you go, changing the subject again. Could not she just answer the question? We have to find Naruto, and quick. Otherwise, everybody will believe he's Sasuke, and we don't know what he intends to do by transforming into him. Anyway, Sakura said, in annoyance, Naruto just picks fights with you. You know why he's so annoying? She asked, lifting her forefinger. 'Cause he wasn't raised right. My whole body tensed and I frowned. She still had not answered the question. And I did not like the way she was talking of Naruto at all. Did she know? Did she really know what she was saying? I don't get it. Why is she so selfish? Why has she always to put Naruto down like that? He had never done anything to her. She, on the other hand, had always been rude and had never been friendly with him. She had never tried to understand him. She was just obsessed with my brother. It almost made me feel like crying for her. That's your only goal in life? You want to have Sasuke for yourself? Nobody counts for you other than him? It's so sad. Sasuke. Sasuke. It was like nobody else existed. She would not go that far with such mentality. He hasn't had a mother or a father. No one to teach him right from wrong. I looked down and I clenched my fists. Sakura, how can you be such a spoiled child and act so nastily with the people around you? How can you act as if you were the most important human being on earth? How can you be so selfish? I could not believe she had said those words. She did not know Naruto's backstory, and she did not know our backstory either. And yet she thought she had the right to talk about people she knew nothing about. I've never seen such a careless girl. You should be ashamed of yourself, Sakura. Just because you're 12 doesn't mean you can say everything you want. Sasuke was still looking for Naruto, and did not give a care about Sakura, so what was she trying to do? And yet, she continued talking, as if what she had just said was not already enough. Think about it. He just does whatever comes into his head. My twin instantly stopped and he glared at her. That girl had missed an opportunity to keep her mouth shut. If I did things like Naruto, forget it. She said with an air of superiority, putting her hands on her lips. I mean, my parents would get mad and I'd get in troubles, so of course I don't do it. But if you don't have parents to tell you, how would you know? He's selfish and bratty. He's all alone. Sasuke's glare intensified and my own look hardened. She was acting like a spoiled child so much that it could make you want to slap her face. I hope for you you'll never be alone like me, Sasuke or Naruto, Sakura. You don't know how lucky you are to still have your family by your side. And because you have your family by your side, you don't know how one truly feels when he hasn't anybody with him anymore. Sakura's parents should really have taught her to think carefully before she spoke. She could say all what she wanted about Naruto, but, at least, he behaved himself more than she did. He was loyal and honest, while Sakura did not care about the other and thought she knows everything about everyone. I knew she probably had not wanted to hurt us by saying that. She probably thought that, since Sasuke did not get along with Naruto, she would have a chance with my brother by criticizing his enemy. She just did not know what she was talking about. And, as the wind was blowing, Sasuke quickly put her in her place, as he always did, without even looking at her. Alone? Isolated? It's not about your parents scolding you. You have no idea what it means to be alone. Why are you saying that? Sakura asked, a bit afraid. She seemed quite shocked and sad, too. I looked at my brother, tears nearly rolling down my cheeks. Sasuke, what she said hurt you too, didn't it? The latter turned towards the pink-haired girl and frowned, irritated. Because, you're annoying. Sakura gasped and I closed my eyes. I would never have said that to her, at least not with those words, but I was not going to blame Sasuke for what he had just told her. There was a moment when she would have to understand she just could not say what was going through her mind without reflecting. Words could hurt as much as weapons, and if it made Sakura's mentality change a bit, well, it could not be that bad, after all. She would get over it, and if what Sasuke had said made her act nicer with the others and especially Naruto, then that would be perfect. Sasuke looked at me. I knew he wanted me to follow him. We still had to find Naruto, after all. I nodded, and he left, without even looking back. Sakura had frozen, staring at the boy who had just rejected her. It had clearly surprised her, knowing that Naruto had nearly kissed her earlier. She was probably wondering why the boy she loved was acting so differently. Sakura turned towards me. Did he just say, I was annoying? She seemed on the verge of tears. I had a lump in my throat. Now that I was seeing her like that, I felt sorry for her. You should have thought better, Sakura. I walked towards her and put a hand on her shoulder. Don't take it too personally, Sakura. My brother had always been the straightforward type. I hope you've learned your lesson, now. I removed my hand. She looked down without saying a word and went to sit on the bench. She needed time to reflect about what had just happened, and it was better for her to be alone for a moment. Plus, I still had to find Naruto. Sakura is not a bad person. She just needs to be nicer with people around her. I left, trying to find my two teammates before they killed each other. It did not take long to find my brother, looking for Naruto in the academy. We walked together, and soon we saw Naruto rushing at us, in the opposite direction. Nobody could miss him, with that orange jumpsuit he was wearing. He skidded and stopped right in front of us. Asuka, he said, smiling, before he frowned. Sasuke, what are you doing here? How did you get loose? I mentally sighed. So, you were indeed behind all this, Naruto? My sister helped me undo the ties, Sasuke said casually, and Naruto's sweat dropped. Why did you do that? Transform into me? The raven-haired boy asked, frowning. I thought it'd be fun to try out my moves on you, so I did. He then stepped back and made the hand signs for the shadow clone technique. 4 replicas of himself appeared in a puff of smoke and aimed at Sasuke, yelling. This time you'll see what I can really do. So, it is the technique he used earlier against Sasuke? I wondered, while the clones were still shouting. My brother gritted his teeth and get into a defensive stance, while Naruto was telling me to get out of the way. Naruto, stop it. We're a team, now. We don't have to fight each other. However, while they were still in the air, ready to attack, the clones suddenly cried in pain. Their stomachs growled and they immediately rushed towards the toilets and started fighting to know who would come in first. What? We looked with wide eyes at the scene, dumbfounded, before Sasuke scoffed. What a loser. With that, he walked away. I looked at the clones again. Naruto would never cease to surprise me.